Chapter 222. The war with Goguryeo and the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates is a matter for the future. Since you are here, I have something to give you. Wait here for now. Under everyone's doubtful gazes, Wang Chong suddenly stood up and walked toward the back of the room. Gongzi, what are you doing? The group turned around and looked at Zhao Jingdian inquiringly. Last night, they could tell that Zhao Jingdian and Wang Chong had a close relationship. If there was something going on, he was probably the only one who knew about it. Zhao Jingdian shook his head in bewilderment. Even though he was a follower of the Wang clan, he wasn't aware of Wang Chong's actions. Wang Chong spent quite some time laying down the brush and ink. Slowly, everyone realized what Wang Chong was writing. Alright, this is my gift to you. It's not threadbound, one for each of you. Go ahead and read it. Roughly 15 minutes later, Wang Chong finally finished writing. He walked over with a few stacks of books and passed one to each of them. This is a cultivation technique. Everyone was perplexed at the start, but when they saw the content, they couldn't conceal their agitation. What Wang Chong gave them were cultivation technique manuals. I've chosen these based on your individual characteristics. Take them and have a good look. Wang Chong nodded and indifferently said. The night assault last night had reminded Wang Chong of the helplessness of a single person. Wang Chong also realized the limits of his strength. This included Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, and the others. It was already a feat for them to survive that kind of assault. Initially, Wang Chong intended to pass these things to them after a period of time. This way it would be more natural. However, there was no need for that now. The group arrived quickly, and Wang Chong didn't have the time to prepare. Thus, he used the brush and paper here to write them down. Gongzi, we have a share as well? Su Qi, Gao Feng, and Nie Yin held the stack of papers in their hands in disbelief. Wang Chong's family background was much higher than theirs. The things he took out were definitely not ordinary. They didn't even need to think about it. What surprised everyone was that they had only just met Wang Chong. Wang Chong actually had something for them. After all, they were different from Zhao Jingdian and Zhuang Jingping. The latter had obviously known Wang Chong for a longer period of time. Wang Chong nodded. To be able to survive last night's situation, and even help others, Su Qi, Gao Feng, and Nie Yan's strength and abilities were beyond doubt. In fact, these were the future generals of the Tang dynasty, who would walk out of the Kunwa training camp. Su Qi's ability might not be as outstanding as Su Hanshan's, but his ability to command troops was definitely extraordinary. On this point, Wang Chong had already sensed it last night. In the future, Gao Feng and Nie Yin would definitely be valiant generals on the battlefield. In the battle against Uzun, these two were the ones who determined the outcome. One was the defending general, while the other was the attacking general. In the future, these two would be the heroes of Jiao and Meng. But now, other than Wang Chong, no one else knew about it. Even they themselves were clueless about it. In the future, Gao Feng and Nie Yin might not need his help. However, the two of them were still inexperienced, and they weren't as mature as they would be in the future. Thank you, Gongzi. The three of them were overjoyed, and they felt immense gratitude toward Wang Chong. Wang Chong nodded his head. What he imparted to them were the most formidable secret arts of the same generation, based on their unique traits. These secret arts were much more formidable than what they could learn on their own, and at the same time, they would be able to build a stronger foundation for themselves. From a certain perspective, this was already out of their control. In the future, even Wang Chong couldn't estimate what kind of achievements they would be able to achieve. The future had already changed, and Wang Chong was also trying to change it. He hoped that through his own hands, he would be able to strengthen these future generals of the empire, turning them into the pillars of the empire. Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, Qi Weisi, Su Qi, Nie Yin, and Gao Feng left in satisfaction. Chen Burang was the last to leave. Thank you, Gongzi. The moment the six of them left, Chen Burang bowed deeply to Wang Chong. Chen Burang was different from the others. He was born into a hunter's family in the mountains. With a single look, Chen Burang could tell that the archery technique that Wang Chong imparted to him was an incredible archery technique. In terms of grade, it far surpassed what Wang Chong had imparted to the other six. In fact, It had far surpassed the origin energy realm and true martial realm, perhaps even reaching an even higher realm. In this aspect, Chun Burang knew his stuff well. Chun Burang, there's no need to thank me. It's not without reason that I imparted this archery technique to you. Wang Chong said. Oh. Chun Burang was surprised, but he soon understood something. With a deep voice he said, if Gongzi has any errands in the future, feel free to instruct me. You're wrong. I don't have any errands for you. All you have to do is to study this secret art I imparted to you, and improve yourself. The empire will have a need for you in the future. Wang Chong smiled. Wang Chong viewed Chun Burang in a different light. The reason was simple. Chun Burang was talented. His ears were able to hear the vibration of a bowstring from several li away. Furthermore, he was able to determine the other party's position through the sound alone. This talent was unique to Chun Burang. From the moment he heard that many scions of the prestigious clans had come to the Kunwa training camp, Wang Chong knew that most of them were here for him. It wasn't surprising for them to appear at this moment. Brother Wang is indeed a talented person. Brother Chai and I have long wanted to take you in. Actually, we had already seen Brother Wang at Azure Dragon Peak for the night assault last night. However, we saw that Brother Wang and Marchioness Yi were having a pleasant conversation, so we didn't disturb you. Guofeng said seriously. Hearing those serious words, Wang Chong nearly burst into laughter. How could he have a pleasant conversation with Marchioness Yi? Back then, everyone was busy moving the corpses and cleaning up the mountain, so they didn't speak much at all. Guofeng was lying through his teeth. I've long heard that Marchioness Yi is a scourge among the scions of the capital, and everyone is fearful of her. It doesn't seem to be fake at all. The Gua and Chai clan are prestigious clans with several hundred years of history behind them, and yet, they are so fearful of Marchioness Yi. Wang Chong chuckled inwardly. Birds of a feather flock together. Those who were able to hang out with second sister, Wang Zhuyan, weren't easy to deal with. The only difference was that second sister was always a scourge to him. On the other hand, Marchioness Yi seemed to be a scourge among the scions of the nobility. Brother Gua must be joking. Marchioness Yi is a heroine, an outstanding figure among women. How can I be compared to her? Wang Chong said. The meaning behind his words was I'm afraid of her as well. So Wang Gongzi is in the same boat as us. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Guofeng and Chai Zi's expressions relaxed. They felt that they were in the same boat as Wang Chong, and their gazes toward Wang Chong became much more intimate. This was especially so for Chai Zi. His eyes were filled with passion, as though he was a kindred spirit. The atmosphere in the room immediately became much more harmonious, and it wasn't as solemn and reserved as before. Right, this is our first meeting, so this is a token of our appreciation. I hope that Brother Wang will accept it. Guofeng and Chai Zi each took out a gold leaf box and pushed it over. This is a 300-year-old Gogrian ginseng. It's extremely useful for raising one's origin energy. Brother Wang, take it and boil it. It'll be beneficial to raising one's cultivation. Even though Gogrian was lacking in resources, and its apothecaries weren't as developed as the Central Plains. However, there was one thing that Gogrian had the best in the world, and that was the Gogrian ginseng. Just like how Sindhu obtained the Hyderabad ores, Gogrian was blessed by the heavens to obtain the best ginseng in the world. The ginseng that grew there was the best tonic for a martial artist to raise their cultivation. Thus, even though Gogrian didn't have many apothecaries, and its resources couldn't be compared to the Central Plains, the ginseng produced a large number of experts. But with these ginsengs, a large number of experts were born, and they even took advantage of it to stand up to the imperial court in Liaodong. Chapter 223. Ginseng above 100 years of age was prohibited from being sold outside of Goguryeo. Wang Chong didn't expect that the duo would take out a 300-year-old Gogrian ginseng. I'll have to thank you then. Wang Chong didn't reject the gift. It just so happened that he needed to reach Origin Energy Tier 8, and the gift from the duo came at the right time. Brother Wang, you're being too polite. Seeing Wang Chong accept the gift, Guofeng and Chai Zi heaved a sigh of relief. Even though the Gua clan and Zi clan were founding members of the Tang dynasty, it had been centuries since then. On the other hand, The Wang clan was a rising power in the Tang dynasty, especially the old master of the Wang clan, Duke Jiao. Not only did he serve as the prime minister, he was also highly respected and wielded great influence in the royal court. The Wang clan was already showing signs of becoming an established clan, and it wasn't too far off from them. On the other hand, Wang Chong caused a huge ruckus in the vast crane pavilion, pummeling Yao Feng and stirring up the regional commander's incident. The duo thought that Wang Chong wouldn't be easy to talk to, or at the very least, he would have a temper. But from the looks of it now, Wang Chong was unexpectedly easy to get along with. Right, if Brother Wang is free, why don't you come to the Tiger Hall in the capital? Brother Chai and I will be sure to treat you well. Perhaps we might be able to introduce some friends to Brother Wang. Guofeng said. Indeed. Actually, there are many people who wish to meet Brother Wang. Chai Zi added. There were different classes in the capital as well. Even though they were all descendants of nobles, they were divided into different groups. The Eight Gods Pavilion was the place where the 15 to 17-year-old scions of the capital went to play. On the other hand, the Tiger Hall was different. Its level was much higher. Most of those who were able to enter the Tiger Hall were highly regarded scions of their respective clans, or those who were about to enlist in the military. They were completely different from those profligate scions in the Eight Gods Pavilion. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for Wang Chong to enter that place. Guofeng and Chai Zi's words were tantamount to opening the door to Wang Chong, allowing Wang Chong to join their group. Even though they were all princes of the capital, it was still difficult for many people to enter the Tiger Leopard Hall. Hehe. It just so happens that I'm also preparing to set up an Origin Chi building for exchanging pointers and martial arts. If Brother Gua and Brother Chai are interested, why don't you come over for a chat? Wang Chong suddenly said. Origin Chi building? Guofeng and Chai Zi looked at each other in surprise. I wonder where Brother Wang intends to open his Yuan Chi tower? Of course it's here. Wang Chong extended a finger and pointed outside. Guofeng and Chai Zi looked at each other. For the first time, they couldn't understand Wang Chong. Don't worry, Brother Wang. We'll definitely be there when the time comes. The two of them said in unison. After lingering in Wang Chong's room for a while, the two of them quickly left. After sending the two of them off, Wang Chong sat alone in the room and fell into deep thought. Wang Chong wasn't joking about the matter regarding the Origin Chi Tower. Guofeng and Chai Xiao were prepared to bring Wang Chong into their group. But how could Wang Chong possibly agree to it? The reason why he joined the Kunwa training camp wasn't to join any faction. The Kunwa training camp was a camp of 100 generals, and Wang Chong's wish was to gather all of them together. Then, using his knowledge, horizons, and cultivation technique manuals, he would help them surpass the limits of their previous lives and reach greater heights. To Wang Chong, these people were his future companions. He had to find a way to gather them together. And the Origin Chi Tower was the best way to do so. I'll have to trouble Uncle to handle this matter, Wang Chong thought. Everyone around him had been sent out by him. Shenhai, Meng Long, Li Zhuxin and Mayase Mayako weren't around. Tuoba Gudyuan was currently in charge of the Zhang clan's affairs, and he wasn't familiar with the affairs of the clan either. Arloja and Ablonidin had already left, saying that they would contact him if there was any news. As a result, Wang Chong didn't have anyone around him that he could use. Not only so, due to the departure of Li Zhuxin and the others, there was no one around Wang Chong to protect him. Furthermore, outsiders couldn't enter the Kunwa training camp either. This was also a problem that left Wang Chong with a headache. The Yao clan, King Qi and those who, before he could raise his strength, he was still in a precarious situation. Perhaps, it's about time to bring that person over, Wang Chong thought. At this moment, a person suddenly appeared in his mind. The invincible great General Li Sai. In the history of the Tang dynasty, this person had left behind an indelible mark. During the most glorious period of the Tang dynasty, this person had ignited the most radiant light in his life and won the respect of everyone. He was the only vanguard of the Tang dynasty who didn't understand the art of war and was conferred the title of Great General through his bravery alone. Even though he had commanded an army of 1 million And he didn't have the authority to oversee an entire region. His standing in the military and the history of the Tang dynasty was in no way inferior to Zhang Shugui, Gao Xinji, and Fomin Linta. In the military of the Tang dynasty, without outstanding strength, standing, and authority, it was impossible for one to become a great general. Thus, Wang Chong's father Wang Yan, the Yao clan's Yao Guangyi, and the other conferred generals weren't able to become a great general. The fact that Li Sai was able to become a great general through his bravery and be conferred the title of Invincible Great General was a testament to his bravery. In the history of the empire, the evaluation of Li Sai was, on the battlefield, he was able to rely on his bravery to change the course of a large-scale battle, as well as the final outcome. This was a unique evaluation. Li Sai's fighting style was to not avoid arrows and stones, to charge forward bravely. No matter how powerful his opponent was, he would never retreat. It was also for this reason that Li Sai had more wounds than anyone could imagine. This was a true man of steel, and he was also the publicly acknowledged #1 vanguard in the history of the Tang dynasty. Of the famed generals of the Tang dynasty, he was the one that Wang Chong wanted to have as his subordinate the most. But even so, it wasn't easy to subdue this future invincible great general. First of all, Li Sai was born in the wilderness. His origins and the trajectory of his life before joining the army had always been a mystery. Even after Li Sai's death, no one knew about it. This person seemed to have never mentioned it to anyone. So even if Wang Chong knew this name, there was no way for him to find it in advance. In addition, as the future invincible great general, Li Sai's growth trajectory was really too fast. In his life trajectory, there was only a half-year gap. If he wanted to recruit him, there was only a short half-year. After half a year, he would enter the service of another great general. At that time, even if Wang Chong wanted to, he might not be able to do it. And after another 2 years, Li Sai's ability would be revealed. At that time, it would be impossible for him to be subdued by anyone. So for Wang Chong, the real opportunity was only that half-year. If he managed to catch him, then he managed to catch him. If he failed, then he would forever miss this future invincible great general. If there are no surprises, he should have already been recruited into the army by now, Wang Chong said to himself. This was the first time Li Sai had stepped onto the stage of history. Not here, but in the conscript army heading to Anxi, where he was still an insignificant, unnoticed ordinary soldier. This was probably the moment when he was at his lowest. But even so, trying to recruit Li Sai was no easy task. The army had its own rules. Once a soldier was registered, it was very difficult to transfer him. Transferring someone from the conscript army to this place was no easy task. Let alone Wang Chong. Not even Wang Chong's father, Wang Yan, could do it. I can only ask for the help of the King of Song. He is in charge of the Bureau of Military Personnel and has the authority to transfer troops. Only he can do this, Wang Chong said to himself. Calming himself down, Wang Chong quickly wrote a letter and sent it via messenger pigeon. After that, Wang Chong received a few more visitors before heading to the Central Kunwa training camp. He needed some space to properly study the art of life massacre that So Yung-sun had given him. At the same time, on Azure Dragon Peak, Sun Jiming, do you really think that you can betray me? Deng Mingxin led a group of men and barged into Sun Jiming's room. As Deng Mingxin had been assigned to Azure Dragon Peak, he had managed to escape the assault last night. Even though the assault had caused a huge uproar, Deng Mingxin was still most concerned about the servant who had betrayed him. Deng Gongzi, I don't know what you're talking about. Participating in the Kunwa training camp is an opportunity that I fought for myself. There's no such thing as betrayal. Seeing the group barging into his room, Sun Jiming's face paled. He clenched his fists tightly, but there was no sign of compromise on his face. Seeing Sun Jiming talk back to him in front of so many people, Deng Mingxin was even more furious. In the past, Sun Jiming had always been submissive before him, doing whatever he was told. He had never talked back to him like this. But in just a single day, he actually dared to stand up straight and talk back to him in front of outsiders. Sun Jiming, don't forget your duty. You're just a lowly servant of our Deng clan. How dare you speak to me like that? Deng Mingxin's face darkened. I'll give you one last chance. Do you want to betray your master for glory and follow that lad from the Wang clan? Or do you want to follow me again? Deng Mingxin, no matter what you say, I won't agree to it this time. Sun Jiming gritted his teeth. It hadn't been easy for him to escape from Deng Mingxin's grasp, so there was no way he would return. Otherwise, given Deng Mingxin's personality, who knew what would happen in the future? Deng Gongzi, there's no need to be polite with him. This lad is asking for a beating. How dare he speak to Deng Gongzi in such a manner? Teach him a lesson, let him know his place. A group of people who had followed him and chimed in. Sun Jiming, since you're determined to not repent, don't blame me for what happens next. Your father doesn't need to stay in the Bureau of Personnel anymore. He should retire early and return to his hometown. Don't think that you'll be of any use just because you've submitted to that fellow Wang Chong. From now on, the members of your Sun clan, young and old, don't think that you'll be able to make a name for yourselves anymore. Just stay in your hometown and focus on farming. Deng Mingxin flung his sleeves, his expression cold as ice. Let me tell you, Sun Jiming, this is all your fault. Deng Mingxin, you dare. In an instant, Sun Jiming's face paled, turning incomparably pale. The Sun clan wasn't some powerful clan, but a family of farmers. Sun Jiming was born in Annan, a poor and impoverished land. It was through their own hard work that the Sun clan managed to climb out of that destitute mountain. In this process, the Sun clan didn't receive any help. Instead, they paid a huge price to achieve this. This wasn't the first time Deng Mingxin had threatened him in such a manner. However, Sun Jiming didn't think that Deng Mingxin would really dare to do so. Borrowing his father's status, he could wipe out the efforts of the entire Sun clan with a single word. Sun Jiming knew that Deng Mingxin's father had the ability to wield great authority. To the Deng clan, the Sun clan was just an insignificant ant that could be trampled to death with a single move. You'll know soon enough whether I dare or not. Deng Mingxin sneered coldly. Walala. Just as they were speaking, the sound of something flying through the air sounded. Everyone turned around, only to see a pitch-black night kite descending from the sky. It flew across the hall and landed lightly on Deng Mingxin's arm. Deng Mingxin recognized it immediately. It was the night kite that had delivered the letter to his father. Sun Jiming, you can't be thinking that you've climbed up a high branch, right? Let me tell you. I'll let you know the price of offending me. Schwa. Chapter 224. Sun Jiming's face was ashen, and his body trembled as he picked up the letter that Deng Mingxin had tossed over. Around them, everyone had a mocking look on their faces. Lad, betrayal depends on the person. Deng Gongzi doesn't dare to offend the Wang clan. But do you think that he can't deal with you? This is the consequence of not knowing when to back down. The crowd sneered coldly. They already knew that Deng Mingxin had written a letter to his father, Deng Zhou, to remove Sun Jiming's father from his position. An assistant minister of the Bureau of Personnel wasn't a high position in the royal court, but it was more than enough to wipe out a mere Sun clan. Sun Jiming's fate was sealed. Hearing the ridicule from the crowd, Sun Jiming's face turned even paler. With trembling hands, Sun Jiming opened the letter. Upon seeing the first line, Sun Jiming was taken aback. He raised his head in disbelief and glanced at Deng Mingxin. What are you looking at? You're only regretting now? It's too late. Deng Mingxin sneered. Sun Jiming didn't argue, but his expression was indescribably bizarre. Picking up the letter, Sun Jiming continued reading. Initially, Sun Jiming's face was as pale as a corpse, but slowly, his lips began to move, and as he read the contents of the letter, his face grew redder and redder. By the end of the letter, Sun Jiming's eyes were brimming with excitement. Deng Mingxin, this is what they mean by karma. Take this letter and read it yourself. Sun Jiming abruptly stood up and threw the letter in front of Deng Mingxin. It was as if 1,000 jin had been removed from his body. Lad, have you gone mad? How dare you speak to Deng Gongzi in such a manner? Beside Deng Mingxin, a 15 or 16-year-old arrogant youth could not help but rebuke angrily. Deng Gongzi, we'll teach him a lesson for you. Another young man spoke up, dissatisfied with Sun Jiming's attitude. I can't be bothered to argue with you. Take a good look at this letter. Deng Mingxin, even though you've threatened me time and time again, I won't hold it against you. You're on your own in the future. After saying those words, Sun Jiming turned around and left. His aura was completely different from before. Impudent. Those who followed Deng Mingxin and flew into a rage, enraged by Sun Jiming's rude behavior. However, as the person involved and the protagonist of the whole thing, Deng Mingxin had an extremely bad feeling. He had known Sun Jiming for more than a day or two, and he had a deep understanding of the latter's character. Sun Jiming was a person who was capable of everything except acting and lying. Furthermore, Sun Jiming's attitude was completely different from before. It was simply too bizarre. What's going on? Deng Mingxin knew something was amiss. He frowned deeply. Almost subconsciously, Deng Mingxin bent down and picked up the letter that Sun Jiming had tossed to the ground with deep doubt in his eyes. Bastard, get over here right now. When he saw the first line of the letter, Deng Mingxin felt as if he had been struck by lightning from the heavens. He was completely stunned. This is impossible. Deng Mingxin's face turned pale, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Flipping open the letter, Deng Mingxin hurriedly scanned through it. In the blink of an eye, Deng Mingxin's face turned from pale to deathly pale. His lips trembled and cold sweat dripped from his forehead. Impossible. This is impossible. Deng Mingxin stared in the direction that Sun Jiming had left with a nervous expression. His body trembled uncontrollably, and his arrogance from before was replaced by fear. No, I can do it. I want to see Gongzi. I want to see Gongzi. Deng Mingxian seemed to have lost his soul. He abruptly turned his head around and hastily rushed in another direction. He didn't even notice that the letter had fallen from his fingers. What's wrong with Deng Gongzi? The crowd stared at one another, unable to comprehend what was going on. They were still waiting for Deng Mingxin to give the order to stop Sun Jiming, so that they could teach him a lesson. Who would have thought that Deng Mingxin would run off first, as though he had lost his soul? Look at what's written on the letter. One of the men bent down and picked up the letter that Deng Mingxin had dropped. A group of people immediately gathered around. Refired? Deng Mingxin's father has been fired from the Bureau of Personnel? How is that possible? Didn't Deng Mingxin say that he was going to fire Sun Jiming's father yesterday? That the crowd stared at one another in dismay. Looking at the letter in their hands, none of them could say a word. With the mystery revealed, the crowd finally understood why Deng Mingxin had left in such a hurry, and why Sun Jiming was so confident all of a sudden. Just that, wasn't this reversal a little too drastic? A moment ago, Deng Mingxin was still intending to deal with Sun Jiming's father. But in the next moment, his father was fired, and it had only been a single day. Isn't this a little too fast? One of the men exclaimed, his voice filled with shock. An assistant minister of the Bureau of Personnel wasn't a high-ranking official, and it couldn't be compared to nobles, ministers, or prestigious clans. However, it wasn't a minor official either. To fire an assistant minister wasn't something that a single person could do. At the very least, it would require the approval of several people. Under normal circumstances, even if the upper echelons wanted to fire an assistant minister, it would take at least half a month. Yet Deng Mingxin was able to get it approved in a single day. What kind of speed was this? It was no wonder Deng Mingxin's father was so furious in the letter that the first word he said was beast. He must have realized that the problem lay with Deng Mingxin. Wang Chong. It's him. It's definitely him. Only he has the ability to do this. Someone suddenly exclaimed. As soon as those words were spoken, the surroundings immediately fell silent. To fire an assistant minister of the Bureau of Personnel in a single day wasn't something an ordinary person could do. But there was one person who could do it, Wang Chong. It was rumored that during the consort Taijin incident, Wang Chong had single-handedly helped the king of Song reverse the situation and return to the royal court. As such, he was highly regarded by the king of Song. On top of that, Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen was an influential official in the royal court. With the two of them working together, it wouldn't be too difficult for them to remove an assistant minister of the Bureau of Personnel. On top of that, Wang Chong had the motive to help Sun Jiming deal with Deng Mingxin. There was no mistaking this point. However, Not only did the crowd not feel relieved, their hearts felt heavy, as though a mountain was pressing down on them. If Wang Chong could make use of his clan's influence to deal with Deng Mingxin easily, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to deal with them. The House of Ministers and Generals isn't something that ordinary people can afford to offend. At this moment, everyone felt a deep sense of apprehension. Deng Mingxin, don't you think that it's a little too late for you to think of me now? On Azure Dragon Peak, Zheng Xian flung his sleeves and flung Deng Mingxin's hands away with a livid face. Dressed in a black robe, Zheng Xian had a delicate face, and he looked to be in his late teens. But very few people knew that he was the student leader of King Qi's Kunwa training camp. Zheng Xian had contributed greatly to the Turks and Goguryans, and it was due to this that he managed to gather quite a bit of influence. However, not many people were aware of this point. Gongzi, you have to save me. I only did this because I didn't want to trouble Gongzi. I didn't expect this to happen. Kneeling on the floor, Deng Mingxin was on the verge of tears. Zheng Gongzi, you are King Qi's subordinate. I'll have to trouble you to plead with King Qi. Bastard! What are you saying? Who do you think King Qi is? Do you think that he will listen to your orders? Zheng Xian's face immediately darkened. Deng Mingxin's face immediately warped. He knew that he had misspoken. However, it was no longer up to him. Zheng Gongzi, no matter what, you have to think of a way to help me. I'm only doing this in order to deal with Wang Chong and vent King Qi's anger. Understanding the severity of the situation, Deng Mingxin immediately changed his words. The reason why he had dealt with Sun Jiming was purely because he didn't want to lose this subordinate, who was easy to control and had great potential. However, this didn't stop him from pushing everything onto Wang Chong. There's no need to say any more. I can't help you. You should leave. Zheng Xian said mercilessly. Deng Mingxin's face warped again and again. In the end, his face turned ashen, and he nearly collapsed to the ground. Zheng Xian was his final straw to deal with Wang Chong. He didn't expect Zheng Xian to reject him as well. Deng Mingxin's lips trembled as he tried to explain himself. However, before he could say anything, Zheng Xian had already turned his head away. It was clear that he wasn't willing to listen to him anymore. Zheng Xian's face was completely devoid of blood, and his eyes were filled with despair. He didn't think that Zheng Xian would reject him as well. His final hope had been dashed. Staggering, Deng Mingxin stood up from the ground as if he had lost his soul. Then he began to walk down the mountain. Gongzi, are we really not going to help him? Seeing Deng Mingxin's dispirited back, an intelligent youth beside Zheng Xian couldn't help but ask. You're muddle-headed. If I could help him, would I not? It's not that I don't want to help him, but there's no one else who can. Zheng Xian took a deep breath, but his complexion was still awful. The assistant minister of the Bureau of Personnel isn't a minor official. If we want to take him down, we'll need both the King of Song and the Wang clan's Wang Zhen to make a move. Right now, unless King Qi is willing to completely fall out with the King of Song and Wang Zhen for Dengzhou. Otherwise, there would be no way to turn this around. The King of Song has been reinstated, and now is the time for him to be proud. Think about it. If King Qi were to risk falling out with the King of Song for the sake of a deposed Dengzhou, what would King Qi do? Would it be worth it? If Deng Mingxin had told me about this matter earlier, there might still be hope. Now that the dust has settled, not even King Qi can do anything about it. Zheng Xian's eyes shone with deep wisdom, completely different from how he acted before Deng Mingxin. Deng Mingxin thought that Zheng Xian was unwilling to help him, but he didn't know that Zheng Xian had already weighed the pros and cons, and knew that this matter couldn't be helped. But if we abandon Deng Mingxin so soon after coming to our side, if others were to learn of this, they would probably be disappointed. The seemingly intelligent young man said, revealing the true worry in his heart with a single sentence. Sigh, this is also something that vexes me. Zheng Xian's face darkened. Previously, when Zhou Zhang instructed me to deal with Wang Chong, I was still thinking of keeping the peace and avoiding him if possible. But now, it seems like I can't avoid him anymore. He's pissing on my neck. As Zheng Xian spoke, his fists were clenched tightly, and his complexion was awful. Wang Chong's slap was a slap to Deng Mingxin's face, but it was also a slap to Zheng Xian's face. Wang Chong, You chose this yourself. Don't blame me for this. Chapter 225. Thank you, Gongzi. On the main peak of the Kunwa training camp, Wang Chong was currently practicing his martial arts in a training room when a figure suddenly walked in. Putong. The figure kneeled on the floor and bowed respectfully. Sun Jiming. Wang Chong turned around and stared at the kneeling youth with a hint of shock in his eyes. But soon Wang Chong smiled. Get up, there's no need to stand on ceremony. Gongzi, thank you. Thank you for your help. Sun Jiming knelt on the floor in gratitude. After reading Deng Mingxin's letter, he had immediately rushed to Wang Chong's side. The Deng clan was too powerful for any ordinary person to oppose. If not for Wang Chong's help, the entire Sun clan would have been implicated by him. It's just a small matter. I've promised you, so I'll definitely do it, Wang Chong said. Deng Mingxin's matter was indeed a small matter to him. Given the Wang clan's strength, dealing with an assistant minister of the Bureau of Personnel was a walk in the park. All Wang Chong had to do was write a letter. On the other hand, Sun Jiming's sincerity had left him deeply moved. Even though it's a small matter to Gongzi, it's a huge matter to Sun Jiming. Sun Jiming, will remember this favor. Sun Jiming straightened his back and looked at Wang Chong. Deng Mingxin was a jealous person, and the Deng clan had a strong desire for control. If not for Wang Chong, Sun Jiming would have been trapped in the cage the Deng clan had set for him. Incidents like Deng Mingxin sacrificing himself so that Sun Jiming could enter the training camp would continue. More importantly, even though Sun Jiming had done so much, Deng Mingxin and the Deng clan would still use the Sun clan to threaten him. This was the reason why Sun Jiming wasn't willing to submit to Deng Mingxin. Sun Jiming was grateful to Deng Mingxin for helping him escape from the cage he had been trapped in. Without a doubt, if it wasn't for Wang Chong, he would have taken a completely different path. Sun Jiming wasn't someone who didn't know how to repay kindness, so he was extremely grateful to Wang Chong. Since you're here, that's fine too. Wang Chong didn't dwell on this matter with Sun Jiming. Reaching into his robe, Wang Chong took out a stack of papers. Previously, I promised to give you a copy of the Panther Bone Cultivation Chant. This will benefit you greatly in the future. Panther Bone. Sun Jiming's heart jolted, and he abruptly raised his head. Root bone determined one's future achievements, and Sun Jiming was well aware that his root bone wasn't too good. Therefore, even if he was proud of his talent, without a good foundation, he would only be a flower in the mirror and the moon in the water. He would not be able to achieve much in the future. Thus, what Sun Jiming wanted the most upon entering the training camp was the root bone cultivation chant. It was just that Sun Jiming didn't expect Wang Chong to give him such a precious root bone cultivation technique that only nobles and nobles would possess so easily. Thank you, Gongzi. Even someone as calm as Sun Jiming couldn't help but feel agitated. This is only the first version. When you successfully cultivate the panther bone, I'll give you an even more profound version of the tiger bone cultivation technique. Sun Jiming, you're talented, so don't waste it, Wang Chong said. Hearing Wang Chong's words, a hint of doubt flashed across Sun Jiming's eyes. Wang Chong's words seemed to have a deeper meaning behind them, leaving Sun Jiming in a daze. Wang Chong smiled and didn't say anything. Sun Jiming was talented, but this talent wasn't in martial arts, but in the way of thinking. Sun Jiming was a rare genius general. However, his strength was his greatest shortcoming. Of all the generals who graduated from the Kunwa training camp, Sun Jiming was one of the weakest generals. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died on the battlefield. A general who liked to launch surprise attacks had to possess outstanding strength. In fact, they had to be far stronger than an infantry general who fought head-on on the battlefield. Sun Jiming's death was partly man-made, but it was also partly due to his own weakness in martial arts. Perhaps not even Sun Jiming knew that Wang Chong was slowly, step by step, changing his future. First, he gave him the panther bone cultivation technique, then the tiger bone cultivation technique, and then the other unparalleled cultivation techniques that he knew of. Wang Chong's plan was to groom Sun Jiming into a powerful general who could stand on his own. The cavalry trained by the Zhuang clan is renowned throughout the world. With the Zhuang clan's cavalry paired with Sun Jiming's talent as a commander, as well as his ability to launch surprise attacks. He will surely become an influential force in the Tang dynasty in the future. Wang Chong thought. Of the people around him, there were two people that Wang Chong was looking forward to meeting the most. One was Sun Burang. With his talent, he would definitely be able to groom an army of the strongest master archers in the Tang dynasty. And the other was Sun Jiming. Archers and cavalry would always be the two most eye-catching formations on the battlefield. Archers specialized in long-range attacks, while cavalry specialized in mobility. And Sun Jiming's ability to grasp opportunities on the battlefield gave him the potential to lead the strongest cavalry. Beastly instincts. This was the conclusion that Wang Chong's previous life had given to Sun Jiming's ability to grasp opportunities. Sun Jiming didn't know this himself, and he hadn't realized it yet. But this talent was truly flowing through his body. As long as he was given a powerful cavalry, Sun Jiming would be able to create one astounding surprise attack after another, without anyone's orders. As for Sun Jiming, there was no need for Wang Chong to subdue him. As long as he was strong, no matter where he was, he would be a success for the entire Tang dynasty. Wang Gongzi, please let me go. I know my mistake. Just as Wang Chong was deep in thought, a pleading voice sounded from the entrance of the hall. Wang Chong and Sun Jiming turned around, only to see a familiar figure walking in from outside. With a loud pung, the figure kneeled onto the floor and prostrated himself. "Ha, I was wondering who it was. So it's you, Deng Mingxin." Seeing the figure kneeling on the floor, Wang Chong sneered coldly. "Why, Deng Mingxin, are you here to warn me?" Sun Jiming stood up from the floor with disdain in his eyes. He didn't expect Deng Mingxin to follow him all the way here to plead for mercy from Wang Chong. When this person was in power, he dared to order him around. But once he lost the upper hand, he dared to run to Wang Chong to beg for mercy. "Deng Mingxin, why are you following me?" Sun Jiming's complexion wasn't too good. "Sun Jiming, I was wrong in the past. You can follow whoever you want to. I won't stop you anymore. Wang Gongzi, I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me, I beg you, please let my father go." Deng Mingxin lowered his head, his face ashen. The strong preyed on the weak. Deng Mingxin knew that he was in the wrong this time. Zheng Xian had already rejected him. And Deng Mingxin knew that the only one who could save him now was Wang Chong. "Deng Mingxin, it's useless to beg me. I can tell you with certainty that I won't help you," Wang Chong said calmly. Wang Chong didn't have a good impression of Deng Mingxin. This person was too manipulative. In his previous life, Sun Jiming could have done much more, but he ended up dying in his hands. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the fate of the Tang dynasty changed because of him. Furthermore, Deng Mingxin was too pragmatic. Wang Chong was the one who harmed him, using Big Uncle and the King of Song to strip his father of his scholarly title and official position. Yet, Deng Mingxin was still able to threaten Sun Jiming one moment, and the next, he ran to Wang Chong to admit defeat and beg for mercy. If such a person was given a chance to rise again, Sun Jiming would probably fall into his hands once more and be harmed by Deng Mingxin. Thus, no matter what, Wang Chong wouldn't agree to it. "Jiming, I know that I've gone overboard at times. But if I ask myself honestly, I'm just trying to find a way out. Jiming, if you were in my shoes, wouldn't it be the same? Even though I did threaten you, I was just saying it. I know that I've gone overboard. But Jiming, other than this matter, think about how I've treated you. My father even praised you and gave you a box of ginseng. Have you forgotten all about it?" Deng Mingxin gritted his teeth and turned to Sun Jiming. Sun Jiming hesitated. Even though he knew that the Deng clan had done so, because Deng Mingxin's father wanted to win him over. But Deng Mingxin's words were undeniably true. In that instant, Sun Jiming couldn't help but feel his heart soften. After all, Deng Mingxin's father was stripped of his scholarly rank because of him. In that instant, Sun Jiming subconsciously turned to look at Wang Chong. "Deng Mingxin, are you still trying to play tricks? Let me tell you, no one can change the decree of the royal court. Even if it's you, I can't help you. Don't waste your efforts." Wang Chong said coldly. He was speaking the truth. It was easy to get rid of someone like Deng Zhou, but it was extremely difficult to restore him to his scholarly rank. Spilled waters cannot be retrieved. Once a decision was made, it was impossible to change it. This was something that not even Wang Chong's big uncle, or the king of Song, could do. Deng Mingxin's efforts were destined to go to waste. Wang Gongzi, I don't expect you to restore my father to his post. I only hope that young master can let me and my father go and don't try to kill us. Deng Mingxin gritted his teeth. As soon as Deng Mingxin said those words, Wang Chong's face darkened. I don't know what you're talking about, Wang Chong said coldly. On the other hand, Sun Jiming seemed to have understood something, and he stared at Wang Chong in shock. Based on Deng Mingxin's words, it seemed like Wang Chong didn't just want to strip his father of his scholarly rank. This fellow is too shrewd. This thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. Stripping Deng Mingxin's father of his scholarly rank wasn't his entire plan. He did intend to deal with Deng Zhou after the latter was stripped of his scholarly rank. Deng Mingxin and his father were Sun Jiming's Achilles heel. Stripping Deng Zhou of his scholarly rank wasn't enough to change Sun Jiming's fate. Thus, the best solution was to ensure that they would never be able to make a comeback. For the sake of the empire's future, Wang Chong didn't mind playing the role of a villain. However, he didn't expect Deng Mingxin to be so sharp. Sun Jiming's death in his previous life wasn't a fluke. Wang Chong realized that he had still underestimated Deng Mingxin. The other party was far more astute than he had thought. Wang Gongzi, regardless of whether you admit it or not, I want you to spare us father and son. In exchange for this promise, I'm willing to give you a secret. Deng Mingxin gritted his teeth. Deng Mingxin wasn't a fool. He knew that Wang Chong had nothing to do with Sun Jiming, but for him, he was willing to mobilize influential officials like the king of Song and his big uncle to deal with him. From Wang Chong's actions, Deng Mingxin felt a strong sense of threat. If Wang Chong wanted to deal with him, he wouldn't stop after stripping his father of his scholarly rank. Deng Mingxin was worried that the Wang clan wouldn't let him off. What secret? Wang Chong asked impassively. It's regarding the Yao clan and King Qi. I only heard one word. Hyderabad ores. Deng Mingxin gritted his teeth. Wang. Chapter 226. How did the Yao clan find out? Wang Chong's eyes flashed. He had always viewed the matter of the Hyderabad ore as his top priority, so he rarely revealed it to others. At the very least, no one knew where he got his Wuxia steel sword for several months. The fact that the Yao clan was able to find out about the Hyderabad ore was enough to explain a lot of problems. Where did you hear that from? Wang Chong turned to look at Deng Mingxin. I also heard about it from Zheng Xian. Once he was chatting with someone, but he didn't say anything. He was chatting with someone once, and I happened to overhear their conversation. Deng Mingxin gritted his teeth. In the past, he would never have dared to do such a thing. But Zheng Xian had already abandoned him. Since that was the case, he couldn't be blamed for this. Zheng Xian. Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up. I didn't hear much about this matter. I only heard that King Qi and the Yao clan wanted to deal with you, and this matter should have something to do with the Hyderabad ore. Deng Mingxin knelt on the ground. I understand. Wang Chong waved his hand. I'll agree to this. Don't provoke Sun Jiming anymore, including the Sun clan. Otherwise, you'll know the consequences. Deng Mingxin quickly left, but Wang Chong fell into deep thought. Deng Mingxin was just an insignificant figure. As long as he was alive, he wouldn't be able to stir up any waves. But the information he had unintentionally provided had made Wang Chong think of many things. Deng Mingxin only knew the name, so he didn't necessarily know what the Hyderabad ore was. But Wang Chong knew that the Hyderabad ore was his lifeline, as well as the lifeline of the entire Wang clan. It was precisely because of the Hyderabad ore that the Wang clan was able to fill in the final gap. They could truly become a clan like the Yao clan, perhaps even stronger than the Yao clan. But this was far from the case for Wang Chong. War was a game of economics. Without sufficient funds, no matter how powerful an individual was, they would not be able to change the future. I've already obtained 300 jun of Hyderabad ore, and the cooperation with the Zhang family is already on track. Even if the Yao family knew about the existence of the Hyderabad ores, they wouldn't be able to threaten me. But for these guys to be able to find out the name of Hyderabad, they're really not simple. Wang Chong thought to himself. His connections in the court had already been established. Not to mention that his uncle's attitude towards him had changed. He could request for experts from him at any time. Just with the Imperial Army Commander Zhao Fengchen, Wang Chong could easily have him alter the patrol routes of the Imperial Army at night and strengthen the defense of the Wang family residence. Even if King Qi and the Yao clan wanted to, they wouldn't be able to do anything. However, one must not have the intention to harm others, but one must always be on guard against others. We have to be careful about this matter, Wang Chong thought to himself. After sending off the grateful Sun Jiming, Wang Chong calmed himself down and focused on his cultivation. Ever since his reincarnation, Wang Chong had already made all the preparations he could. The most urgent matter at hand was to raise his cultivation. Clang! With a thought, the blunt sword hanging on Wang Chong's waist flew into his hands. With lightning speed, he hacked at the 3 wooden puppets 5 steps away. Chi! A surge of origin energy pierced through the air and struck one of the wooden puppets. But soon, Wang Chong's origin energy was exhausted. He was unable to fire a second or third surge of origin energy. It's still too weak. Again. With a thought, Wang Chong struck the wooden puppet once more. Swordsmanship was an offensive technique, not a secret art of internal energy. Thus, compared to other internal energy cultivation techniques, swordsmanship focused more on technique, the activation of origin energy, and the condensation of sword qi. These were all content that swordsmen needed to learn. What Wang Chong was doing now was the content taught in the Art of Life Massacre. According to the requirements of the 100 Words Manual, the first step was for Wang Chong to release his origin energy through his sword and strike 3 wooden puppets within a second. As the distance between the wooden puppets increased, the number of wooden puppets increased. Only when he could release his origin energy within a second and strike 12 wooden puppets at a distance of 10 zhang would Wang Chong be able to truly cultivate his sword qi. And these were only the prelude to the Art of Life Massacre. The number of words on the mental cultivation method was only 10. The Art of Life Massacre didn't require one to cultivate internal energy, but it was far more difficult to cultivate than any other manual. Qi. Once, twice, thrice, 4 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. In the dull training room, Wang Chong drew his sword time and time again. The training camp had just opened, and there were many Imperial Army members on the mountain. This period of time was surprisingly peaceful. Qi. 3 days later, Wang Chong's back was drenched in sweat. With a wave of his hand, 3 streams of origin energy struck 3 wooden puppets 5 steps away simultaneously. The number of wooden puppets increased rapidly. 7 days later, there were 6 of them. Then there were 7, 8, 9. There weren't many shortcuts in the cultivation of sword qi. This was something Wang Chong knew in his previous life. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Half a month later, the number of wooden puppets in front of Wang Chong had reached 14. This had already exceeded the requirements of the training. I can start the next step of the training, Wang Chong thought to himself as he began to pull the distance between the wooden puppets. Origin energy couldn't be condensed indefinitely. The further the distance, the more energy would be expended. The second stage of the Art of Life Massacre was to increase the distance of the origin energy transmission step by step. Pung, pung, pung. The first few times Wang Chong failed. The primordial qi shot out from the iron sword disappeared within 5 steps. But soon, Wang Chong realized the key to this. If I want to transmit the origin energy further, I need to make the origin energy from the iron sword smaller. Wang Chong thought to himself. After understanding this step, Wang Chong immediately knew what to do. 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps. Wang Chong slowly condensed the origin energy from the iron sword, making it smaller and denser. 8 steps, 9 steps, 10 steps. The distance between the wooden puppets and Wang Chong was getting further and further. This kind of thing didn't require too much comprehension. Instead, it required constant practice and slowly grasping the key. 11 steps, 12 steps, 13 steps, 4 zhang, 5 zhang, 6 zhang. The origin energy from Wang Chong's iron sword was getting further and further away. This level of origin energy couldn't actually hurt anyone, but Wang Chong didn't care. Because this was the foundation of the art of life massacre. 8 zhang, 9 zhang, 11 zhang. When the wooden puppets were getting further and further away from Wang Chong, the origin energy from Wang Chong also became thinner and smaller. But the luster was getting stronger and stronger. In a single second, Wang Chong was able to strike more than a dozen wooden puppets at a distance of 120 zhang. Finally, he could enter the third stage of the foundation training. This stage was impossible for Wang Chong alone. Therefore, Wang Chong found a few people. Are you ready? In the dark secret chamber, it was so dark that one couldn't even see their fingers. They could only communicate by sound. Wang Chong nodded. In the next moment, countless square-shaped wooden blocks were thrown at Wang Chong from 3 different directions. Chi, origin energy whistled, and streams of energy whizzed out, shooting at the small square-shaped wooden blocks in the air. Pa, pa, pa. Except for 6 or 7 wooden blocks that were hit, the rest of the wooden blocks whizzed out and hit Wang Chong's robe. It's still a bit difficult to determine the position by listening to the wind. Wang Chong opened his eyes and thought to himself. The third basic training of the art of life massacre was to determine the position by listening to the wind. This was not only to determine the position of the enemy by listening to the wind, but also to train precise swordsmanship. The higher the level of swordsmanship, the higher the requirement for control and precision. As the top and unparalleled technique in the past, the art of life massacre had even stricter requirements in terms of technique. Precision, speed, and accuracy were the basics of swordsmanship. Only by mastering these could one truly learn more advanced swordsmanship. While Wang Chong was concentrating on practicing the art of life massacre, a group of people were beating drums and gongs outside the Kunwa training camp on a mountain very close to the White Tiger Peak. What are these guys doing? The people on the White Tiger Peak were the first to notice the strange situation nearby. At first they were still puzzled, but gradually they felt that something was wrong. These guys are actually building a house there. Looking at the foundation that had appeared on the peak of the mountain in just a few days, everyone was dumbfounded. Someone is actually building a house near the Kunwa training camp. Who are they? Where did these guys come from? Where did they come from? What do you think? Do you think Kunwa training camp can be built with money? In an instant, a hint of fear appeared in everyone's eyes. Outsiders were not allowed to enter Kunwa training camp. The other party actually dared to build a house at such a close distance. This person must have a powerful background. Some people wanted to go and take a look, but after hearing this, they immediately backed out. The other party clearly knew that this was Kunwa training camp, yet they still dared to build a house here. Obviously, they had a powerful background. Most of the people in Kunwa training camp were ordinary civilians, or the descendants of ordinary government officials. These people were not to be trifled with. Who the hell is this person? He even mobilized the Imperial Guards? At the same time, on the Vermilion Bird Peak and the Green Dragon Peak, many people from aristocratic families also noticed this scene. However, unlike the others, they noticed that there were some figures on the peak of the mountain. They were obviously from the Imperial Guards. The Imperial Guards were the Emperor's guards. Since the other party could mobilize the Imperial Guards, it was obvious that he had a powerful background. Many people from aristocratic families also revealed a look of fear, not daring to provoke him. Hurry up, build this mansion as soon as possible. At this moment, at the top of the mountain, Wang Chong's uncle Li Lin was commanding a group of masons on the peak of the mountain with a few Imperial Guards. Li Lin had accepted Wang Chong's letter and bought this mountain range according to the latter's request. The Kunwa training camp strictly forbade outsiders from approaching, but places outside the camp were not subject to this rule. Wang Chong saw this loophole and asked Li Lin to buy the mountain in advance, preparing to build his first base on the mountain. Until now, no one had reacted. Wang Chong had taken the initiative. Chapter 227. Hurry. If we can complete it before the deadline, everyone will be rewarded with an ingot of gold. Li Lin shouted from the top of the mountain. The matter of Wang Chong purchasing a mountain near the three great training camps had already caught the attention of the royal court. By the time the royal court realized this, the construction of any buildings within dozens of li of the three great training camps would be strictly prohibited. Thus, they had to work overtime to complete it as soon as possible. Wang Chong had already mentioned all of this in his letter. As the saying went, money makes the world go round. This was the moment where Wang Chong's wealth came into full play. 80,000 gold taels was a huge burden to many clans. However, Wang Chong was different. He didn't have any special business burdens. He didn't have any cash flow. And most of what he had on hand was cash. Money was the last thing he lacked. If it were anyone else, even if they had the intention, they wouldn't be able to pull out so much money so easily. With the incentive of money, the craftsmen on the mountain were full of vigor. In just 10 days, the foundation was laid. In around 20 days, the first floor was built, and the basic outline of the residence was outlined. The reason why Wang Chong bought this mountain wasn't just to build a house on it. Instead, he intended to build an antique courtyard on the mountain that could accommodate hundreds of people. A garden, a pavilion, a long corridor, a guest room, a training ground, a tea room. Everything that one would need was available. All of these items were incomparably luxurious. Even the scions of the nobility found it hard to bear. Without the support of the clan, it was unimaginable to build such a large residence. The amount of money required wasn't something that the students of the three great training camps could afford. However, to Wang Chong, this wasn't a problem at all. Hundreds of skilled craftsmen were called into the mountain. Like ants moving houses, they busied themselves. With so many people, the entire residence was built on the mountain within a month. Looking from afar, the eaves were arched, and the eaves were high. It was a grand sight. The only thing missing was a paint job and a set of solid wood furniture. Wang Chong's uncle Li Lin did not stand on ceremony either. As soon as the mountaintop was preliminarily built, he sent a group of experts with bulging temples to guard it. These people were sent over by Wang Chong's big uncle, Wang General. After learning of Wang Chong's request, Wang Zhen immediately dispatched these guards from his clan. Firstly, it was to protect the courtyard, and secondly, it was to protect Wang Chong. The previous night raid was a lesson to be learned. Wang Zhen didn't want anything to happen to Wang Chong again. This was the degree of importance that Wang Chong was currently receiving in the family. However, when the Wang clan's guards entered the mountain peak, all the mysteries were revealed. Wang clan guards. These people are the guards of the Wang clan. On the White Tiger Peak, a group of people stared at the expressionless guards stationed at the peak with their eyes wide open. Living in the capital, they were able to recognize the emblems of the prestigious clans. There was almost no one in the capital who didn't know of the Wang clan's influence. And there was only one person from the Wang clan in the Kunwa training camp. In an instant, everyone turned to look at Zhao Jingdian. Don't ask me. I don't know either. Gongzi has always been an unfathomable person. Zhao Jingdian knew what everyone was thinking, and he hurriedly shook his head. After interacting with Zhao Jingdian for a period of time, they knew that he wouldn't lie. However, to Su Qi, Gao Feng, Ye Yan, and the others, it was a completely different story. The three great training camps were designated by the sage emperor. It was not a place where anyone could build anything they wanted. This was the first time they witnessed Wang Chong's means and astounding financial strength. Ha ha ha, as expected of my brother. I'll have a share of this residence from now on. Unlike the others, Wei Hao burst into laughter upon hearing the news. He was clearly excited. Isn't that lad a little too eye-catching? On the Vermilion Bird Peak, the group of powerful ladies standing beside Marchioness, he also noticed the building that had suddenly risen from the ground. What is that Wang Chong up to? On the Azure Dragon Peak, Abutong and the other Hu students had also noticed the eye-catching residence. However, unlike the others, Abutong had been keeping a close eye on Wang Chong's movements during this period of time. It was only at the very last moment that Abutong noticed that the residence next to the Kunwa training camp was actually Wang Chong's. Wang Chong's memorial had caused the Hu to lose many benefits. Abutong didn't think that Wang Chong would do something so meaningless, so he couldn't help but frown in bewilderment. Isn't that lad of the Wang clan reacting a little too quickly? Is he intending to build a base here and expand his territory? On another peak, Zheng Xian also noticed the changes on the mountain. Walala! A moment later, two pigeons flew out from the Azure Dragon Peak, one toward King Qi and the other toward Zhouzhang. At this very moment, Wang Chong was oblivious to the changes in the surroundings. There was a specialized training chamber in the Kunwa training camp, and only those whose cultivation had reached Origin Energy Tier 7 were allowed to use it. At this moment, Wang Chong was in the training chamber. In the past month, Wang Chong had devoted almost all of his attention to practicing the art of life massacre. He rarely returned to his residence, and even Zhao Jingdian and the others found it hard to meet him. In terms of difficulty, Wang Chong was probably no weaker than Su Han's Han. It's about time. I should be able to master it soon. In the secret chamber, Wang Chong sat cross-legged on the floor as he thought. After a month of hard work, Wang Chong had already grasped the basics of swordsmanship very well. With a thrust of the sword, he could almost accurately stab any small wooden block he wanted to stab from among the tens of thousands of small square wooden blocks. Wang Chong had a feeling that he was about to reach minor accomplishment in the art of life massacre and form sword qi. Qi! Wang Chong raised a small wooden block, and with a thought, he drew his sword, unsheathed it and slashed down. In an instant, a ray of origin energy, as thin as a silver chopstick, shot through the air. Half of the origin energy was blazing fiercely, while the other half was translucent and loose. The two energies intertwined with one another and pierced toward the eyes of a wooden humanoid 10 zhang away. After more than a month of hard work, Wang Chong's swordsmanship had allowed him to easily pierce through the eyes, ears, fingertips, collarbones, and any other small part of a wooden figurine. Even if it was an ant in a dark room, Wang Chong would be able to accurately pierce through it. Wang Chong was confident that if his sword were to strike, the wooden humanoid's eyes would be pierced through, leaving behind a smooth and sharp finger-sized hole. Pung! But just when Wang Chong was filled with anticipation, something strange happened. Pung! When it was still 3 to 4 zhang away from the wooden humanoid, Wang Chong's sword qi vibrated, and two completely different energies clashed in the air. In the end, with a deafening explosion, the two energies dissipated into the air. It still doesn't work, Wang Chong sighed, and the light in his eyes faded. Thus, Yung Sun's art of life massacre was far more difficult to cultivate than he had imagined. The aptitude required for this unique skill was far higher than he had imagined. Half sword qi, half primordial qi. This situation is already very good. But it still doesn't work. Sword qi is too domineering, and it can't tolerate other types of energy. If these two different energies are entangled together, my swordsmanship will not have any power. What is going on? Is it still not enough? Wang Chong thought to himself. This was already the 11th failure, and Wang Chong felt that there might be something wrong with his cultivation. Let's put it aside for now. Wang Chong sighed and stood up. Crack! A series of violent bone-cracking sounds came from Wang Chong's body. Compared to before, Wang Chong's aura had obviously grown a lot stronger. The way of the sword nurtured people, and it could change a person's temperament. After cultivating the art of life massacre for more than a month, Wang Chong's aura had grown sharper, reminiscent of a sharp sword that was about to be unsheathed. He exuded an imposing aura that inspired awe in others. On top of that, Guofeng and Chai Ziyi had given Wang Chong several hundred-year-old ginsengs. Even though Wang Chong didn't train his internal energy, his cultivation still grew by quite a bit. Even though he hadn't reached Origin Energy Tier 8 yet, his cultivation had grown significantly. It seems like everyone has been working hard over the past month. When he walked out of the technique practicing room, he saw that the entire main peak of Kunwu was packed with people. It was bustling with activity and seemed to be in full swing. Seemingly influenced by the night assault, Wang Chong felt that everyone was working hard on their martial arts. Furthermore, when they were sparring, it was as though they were in a real battle. Archers, infantrymen, and cavalrymen, everyone seemed to be holding their breaths, putting in a lot of effort. With effort comes reward. Compared to when the training camp first opened, Wang Chong could feel that the atmosphere in the training camp had changed. The overall prowess of the training camp was clearly a notch higher. Qiu. While Zhang Xian was touring the main peak, a crisp and sharp cry suddenly sounded from the top of his head. Lifting his head, Wang Chong saw messenger pigeons flying above him, flying back and forth between the training camp and the capital. Most of the people in the Kunwa training camp were commoners, or descendants of ordinary officials, so there wasn't much going on here. Even without thinking too much, Wang Chong could guess that this must have something to do with the scions of the prestigious clans in the training camp. This could be considered as the style of scions of the prestigious clans in the capital. Qiu. Just as Zhang Xian was chuckling, the cry of a messenger pigeon suddenly sounded from the top of his head. Raising his head, Wang Chong saw a messenger pigeon flying over from afar. Just as he was wondering who it was, Wang Chong suddenly realized that the messenger pigeon was flying straight toward him. Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up. His gaze soon fell on the messenger pigeon. This is a letter from Big Uncle? Seeing the golden ring on the left leg of the messenger pigeon, Wang Chong's eyes flickered in astonishment. This messenger pigeon was raised by Big Uncle Wang General, however. The golden ring on the left leg of the messenger pigeon held a special meaning in the Wang clan. Unless it was an extremely important matter, it wouldn't appear. Big Uncle wants to meet me. Chapter 228. Translator. Ryuxinji Editor. H2DH2 Mr. Wang Zhen was an influential official of the royal court, and he had many affairs to attend to. Unless there was something important, he wouldn't contact Wang Chong. Needless to say, take the initiative to look for him. In Wang Chong's memory, the last time Big Uncle looked for him was when he committed a calamity. Furthermore, the rules of the 3 great training camps were strict. Big Uncle should understand that unless there was something important, it would be best for him not to disturb Wang Chong. Strange. Wang Chong was perplexed. Even so, he still left the area. Leaving the main peak, along a small path, he arrived at a mountain not too far away. A carriage covered in green cloth was parked, and several guards of the Wang clan stood by the side, surveying the surroundings warily. Big Uncle. Wang Chong boarded the carriage, and within the carriage, he met his big uncle. Wang General Wang Zhen was dressed in green casual clothes, and even though he wasn't dressed in the robes of the royal court, his every movement exuded the authority of an influential official. When Wang Chong entered, his brows were slightly furrowed, seemingly conflicted over something. "You're here." Upon seeing Wang Chong enter, Wang Zhen finally raised his head, and his brows slowly relaxed. A warm smile appeared on his face. "Sit." Wang Zhen gestured to his side. This seat was very close to Wang Zhen, almost right beside him. This showed his deep trust and closeness to Wang Chong. Such treatment would have been unimaginable in the past. "Big Uncle." Wang Chong didn't turn down Wang Zhen's invitation. He bowed respectfully before taking a seat beside Wang General. Wang Chong knew that Big Uncle's attitude toward him was completely different from before. This was because his performance had won his Big Uncle's trust and respect, and he had been accepted as a core member of the clan. Love the house, love the crow. Now, Uncle treated his mother and little sister very kindly, not as strict as before. "How is the training camp?" Wang Zhen asked with a smile. Instead of getting down to business, he began to ask about Wang Chong's affairs in the training camp, behaving like a benevolent elder of the clan. "Not bad, except for the first day when I almost died on the mountain." Wang Chong also laughed. He was now very casual in front of his uncle, treating him as a trustworthy elder. Disregarding those minor matters, there was actually no deep grudge between Wang Chong's family and Big Uncle Wang Zhen. At most, it would be a little competition between Big Brother, Second Brother, and Cousin Wang, as well as a little competition for grandfather's influence. However, Wang Chong had already thought it through. He would not compete with his cousin. On the contrary, he would try his best to help his cousin achieve better development and higher achievements. The development of the Wang clan should not be limited to a small pond. Instead, he should set his sights on the bigger world. Hehe, I also know about this matter. Andong and Anbei had fought a few battles recently. The Turks and Gogurians had suffered heavy casualties, and this operation had paid a heavy price. However, the mistakes of the past would serve as a lesson for the future. I'll send a few experts from my family over. With them around, you'll be safer, Wang Zhen said. As an influential official of the royal court, he rarely went anywhere, and his range of activity was limited to the capital. As such, he didn't need so many experts by his side. He could easily assign them to Wang Chong. Thank you, big uncle. Wang Chong was overjoyed. He had no intention of turning down Wang Zhen's help. He didn't have many experts by his side at the moment, and the more top-notch experts he had, the better. Wang Zhen also chuckled. He viewed Wang Chong with great importance. He was the greatest hope of the Wang clan. Even if he couldn't take over his father's position and influence in the royal court, his third brother, Wang Yan, and fourth brother, Wang Mi, would have to take over. This included the eldest son, Wang Li, Wang Fu, and Wang Bei. Everything fell onto the shoulders of his youngest nephew, Wang Chong. Wang Zhen knew that once his father passed away, only Wang Chong would be able to accept his influence and lead the Wang clan to greater heights. He was the future hope of the Wang clan. No matter how many people he sent to protect him, it wouldn't be enough. Right, has Yang Zhao contacted you recently? Wang Zhen suddenly asked. Yang Zhao? Why would big uncle ask about this? Wang Chong frowned. He had met Yang Zhao a few times, but their relationship wasn't that close. Furthermore, it wasn't inconvenient for them to meet in the training camp. He hasn't. Wang Zhen straightened his back, and a hint of doubt flashed across his eyes. But it should be about time. Keep an eye out for him. He should be coming to look for you soon. Wang Chong didn't say anything, but the doubt in his eyes deepened. Why would Yang Zhao look for him? And why was big uncle so confident? Zhangqiu Jianxiong wants to come to the capital. Seeing Wang Chong's doubtful gaze, Wang Zhen fell silent for a moment before revealing the purpose of his visit. What? Hearing big uncle Wang Chong's words, Wang Chong widened his eyes in shock. Zhangqiu Jianxiong was the Southern Protector General, the great general who supports the empire. In the military circles of the Tang dynasty, Zhangqiu Jianxiong played an important role. Given Zhangqiu Jianxiong's standing, Wang Chong knew that big uncle wasn't just saying that he wanted to take a stroll in the capital. As expected, big uncle Wang Zhen said something completely different. Zhangqiu Jianxiong has been guarding Jiannan for more than 20 years now. There is no war at Arai, and Uzan is safe as well. Zhangqiu Jianxiong hasn't contributed much to the military while guarding Jiannan. This time, he wants to change his position and enter the capital. Wang Zhen said impassively, his face devoid of any emotion. Wang Chong's expression turned grim. Zhangqiu Jianxiong was the Southern Protector General, an existence on par with Gao Xianji and Fomin Linta. For such a figure to suddenly want to be transferred to the capital, it wasn't because he wanted to become a minor official, but because he had a bigger goal in mind. This is like a huge shark barging into the capital. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. In the royal court, all positions were already fixed. This was the result of the constant competition between the various powers. Now that Zhangqiu Jianxiong wanted to enter the capital, it would be like a ferocious dragon crossing the river. The entry of a new power would disrupt the existing structure. This would affect all parties. Even the Wang clan and big uncle would be affected. Because there was so much porridge in the city, if too many people were to eat it, it would surely affect others. More importantly, Zhangqiu Jianxiong didn't belong to any faction at the moment. Wang Chong suddenly understood why big uncle would make an exception to appear at the Kunwa training camp to look for him. Initially, this matter didn't have much to do with the Wang clan or big uncle. The crux of the matter was Wang Chong himself. Not too long ago, Zhangqiu Jianxiong was one of the heavyweights who supported him in the regional commander's incident. The Wang clan owed Zhangqiu Jianxiong a favor. Or to be more precise, Wang Chong owed Zhangqiu Jianxiong a favor. Which position does he want? Wang Chong asked. Minister of War. Wang Zhen replied. SSSS. Hearing those words, Wang Chong's eyelids twitched violently. He took in a deep breath and said, that person sure has a big appetite. The Minister of War was in charge of the mobilization of the armies of the Tang dynasty, as well as the various border armies. He wielded great influence in the royal court, and he was a truly influential official. In terms of standing, the Minister of War was above the Protector Generals and Protector Generals. For Zhangqiu Jinxiong to become the Minister of War, he was truly ambitious. This move was simply too abrupt. Even Wang Chong was taken aback by it, needless to say, Big Uncle and the others. This was a reshuffle of the upper echelons. Big Uncle the King of Song, King Qi the Yao clan, the Prime Minister. Everyone was involved. Wang Chong raised his head and looked at Big Uncle Wang. General, it suddenly dawned on him that he wasn't the only reason why Big Uncle Wang came to look for him. The King of Song was also involved. Did Yang Zhao look for you? Wang Chong asked. Not yet. Even if he did, he wouldn't be the one to look for me. Wang Zhen replied calmly. Wang Chong understood what he meant. Big Uncle Wang Zhen was an influential official in the royal court, and he was responsible for the governance of the nation. On the other hand, Yang Zhao didn't have any official position yet. The two of them weren't on the same level. Even though Wang Chong knew that the future Yang Zhao would surely become a powerful figure in the Tang dynasty, it was clear that he hadn't reached that level yet. Even though I didn't look for him, I already have the intention. Yang Zhao is just an insignificant figure, so there's no need to pay him any heed. However, the consort Taizhen backing him isn't someone we can ignore. At the moment, it's still unclear if this is the intention of the consort Taizhen, the Holy Emperor, or perhaps Zhangqiu Jinxiong is acting on his own. But no matter what, since this matter has been brought up, no one can ignore it. There has never been a successful case of a Protector General being appointed as the Minister of War. In the previous dynasty, the Anqi Protector General requested to be appointed as the Minister of War, but he failed. It was the same for Gaozong's era and Taizong's era. A contemplative look appeared in Wang Zhen's eyes. A powerful aura began to emanate from his body, revealing his identity as an influential official of the royal court. Zhangqiu Jinxiong's request to be appointed as the Minister of War is highly likely to fail, but it's not impossible. The problem now is that if we agree to it, Zhangqiu Jinxiong's entry will stir up the other powers, and our Wang clan will become the common enemy of the other powers. By then it won't just be King Qi, the Yao clan, the Prime Minister, the other neutral powers, dukes, marquises, generals and protector generals. Zhangqiu Jinxiong has offended quite a few people in the military. If we don't agree to it, it's fine if Zhangqiu Jinxiong fails. But if he succeeds in becoming the Minister of War, our Wang clan's enemies will not only be the Yao clan and King Qi, but also the Minister of War. Do you understand what I mean? Big Uncle Wang Zhen said grimly. The Wang clan wasn't greedy for credit, but if the Wang clan were to agree to it, and Zhangqiu Jinxiong succeeded, the Wang clan would become the common enemy of the other powers in the royal court. On the other hand, if the Wang clan didn't agree to it, and Zhangqiu Jinxiong succeeded, the Wang clan would become the common enemy of the other powers in the royal court. The Wang clan had quite a few powers in the military, and this included Wang Chong's father, big brother, cousin and little uncle. The Minister of War wielded the authority to mobilize troops. If the Wang clan offended a Minister of War, even without leaving too much of a trace, the Wang clan could just deploy its troops to the most dangerous location, and the Wang clan would be in deep trouble. Chapter 229. Even if Zhangqiu Jinxiong failed to become the Minister of War, he would still be a powerful figure in the military. The identity of the Southern Protector General still carried great weight, and it wasn't something that could be easily overlooked. Even though the Wang clan wasn't necessarily afraid of Zhangqiu Jinxiong, it would be worse if they were to make an enemy out of nowhere. Furthermore, if they were to be pulled over by King Qi and the Yao clan, they would be in deep trouble. What is the stance of King Qi and Yao Guangyi? Did Zhangqiu Jinxiong look for them? Wang Chong pondered. No. Wang Zhen shook his head as a hint of approval flashed across his eyes. The current Wang Chong was indeed impressive. He didn't need to say much to be able to detect many key points. That's right. Zhangqiu Jinxiong was different from any of them. Whether it was the Wang clan or the Yao clan, he didn't have much of a relationship with either of them, except for the matter regarding Wang Chong. In other words, he didn't have any enmity with either of them. If he could rope in the Wang clan, he could also rope in the Yao clan. In this regard, he had no scruples. The Yao family hasn't expressed their stance yet, and that's what's troublesome. This matter has only just begun, and we still can't determine whether Zhangqiu Jinxiong has made contact with the Yao and Qi clans or not. If we agree with the Yao family's hostile stance, they will most likely oppose it. If we were to oppose it, even if the Yao clan didn't agree to it before, they would probably agree to it now. Even if this matter fails in the end, the Yao clan will still be able to obtain benefits. Wang Jin frowned. If things weren't so troublesome, he wouldn't have come to Wangchong. On the surface, there might not be the slightest bit of turbulence in politics, but when the dust settled, there would be a huge uproar. Throughout history, countless aristocratic families and rich families had made the same mistake, resulting in the annihilation of their families, or their heads rolling on the ground. If one were to look into it, they would have to look into it carefully. In the Wang clan, there weren't many people qualified to discuss such matters. Wang Chong was the only one. Big Uncle isn't sure whether Zhangqiu Jinxiong will succeed or not. Wang Chong pondered for a moment and said, "Yes." Wang Jin nodded grimly. In front of his nephew, he had nothing to hide. He had been thinking about this for a long time. Big Uncle, rest assured, Zhangqiu Jinxiong will definitely be able to enter the great court. Wang Chong said in a deep voice. What? Wang Jin was astonished. Looking at Wang Chong beside him, he saw that his expression was calm, and his gaze was steady. He gave off a feeling that he had a well-thought-out plan, and that the overall situation was within his grasp. It seemed that he had been thinking about this matter for a long time. Wang Jin was here to seek Wang Chong's opinion, but she didn't expect him to give her such a firm answer. "Chonger, why are you so sure?" Wang Jin said grimly. This question had been bothering him for a long time, but for some reason, Wang Chong seemed to be very sure of it. Not even Wang Jin would dare to say such words. "Haha, uncle, do you believe me?" Wang Chong smiled. "You child." Wang Jin couldn't help but smile dotingly. If he didn't believe in his own nephew, he wouldn't have come here in the first place. Zhangqiu Jinxiong will definitely become the Minister of War. Wang Chong said seriously. However, even if he does become the Minister of War, it might not necessarily be beneficial to us. Zhangqiu Jinxiong will never belong to any faction between the Wang clan and the Yao clan. However, it isn't wise to reject him directly either. Since Zhangqiu Jinxiong dares to openly vie for the position of Minister of War, he must have something up his sleeves. The situation is still unclear, and there are many people who are hesitating just like Big Uncle. However, since Zhangqiu Jinxiong will become the Minister of War sooner or later, why don't you write a letter of support for him now? This way, Zhangqiu Jinxiong will be grateful to us. Given Zhangqiu Jinxiong's personality, he will surely spread the news once he receives Big Uncle's letter. After all, he has been scheming for this matter for a long time, and he is determined to succeed. However, Big Uncle can't acknowledge it verbally, nor can he express his stance in the royal court. Firstly, we can see who Zhangqiu Jinxiong has contacted in the royal court. Secondly, when the situation becomes urgent, Zhangqiu Jinxiong will surely send someone to look for Big Uncle. When that time comes, Big Uncle can make his stance clear and express his support for him. This way, not only will Zhangqiu Jinxiong be grateful to us, but it will also prevent our Wang clan from becoming the public enemy. Wang Chong lowered his head and stroked his chin. Wang Chong rarely interfered with the political affairs of the royal court, but Zhangqiu Jinxiong was no ordinary person. However, Zhangqiu Jinxiong was no ordinary person. In the future, he would definitely play an important role in the royal court. Since the Wang clan was involved in this matter, Wang Chong had no choice but to tread carefully. "I understand. Chonger, you mean to say that the reason why Zhangqiu Jinxiong is so high-profile is because he has a certain degree of confidence. Other than our Wang clan, he has also contacted many others. Even the Yao clan, King Qi, and the Prime Minister are all possible. This is probably the reason why you asked me to write a letter of support for him," Wang Jin said gravely, seemingly understanding something. Wang Chong nodded, but he had other thoughts in mind. The reason why he was certain that Zhangqiu Jinxiong would become the Minister of War was because Consort Taizhen would surely allow him to become the Minister of War. After all, she was simply too weak in the royal court. Only by placing Zhangqiu Jinxiong in the royal court would Consort Taizhen have someone to rely on in the royal court. Only then would she be able to stabilize her position. Otherwise, she would be too isolated. For this goal, she would do her best to help Zhangqiu Jinxiong ascend to the Minister of War. On the other hand, Yang Zhao also wanted Zhangqiu Jinxiong to become the Minister of War. And in fact, he was even more eager than Zhangqiu Jinxiong. Everyone thought that Zhangqiu Jinxiong was too ambitious. But in Wang Chang's view, Yang Zhao was the true mastermind. Only he could instigate Consort Taizhen, and only he could align his interests with Zhangqiu Jinxiong's. In the royal court of the Tang dynasty, without a doubt, Yang Zhao was just an insignificant figure. But Wang Chong knew that everyone was underestimating this future giant of the Tang dynasty. His future standing would even surpass that of Yao Guangyi. Even though he still couldn't match up to someone like Yao Chong, he wasn't too far off. Yang Zhao was much smarter than everyone thought. He knew that his qualifications were too shallow. That was why he wanted to push Zhangqiu Jinxiong up to the Minister of War. As the saying went, having connections in the royal court makes things easier. Only with Zhangqiu Jinxiong would he, Yang Zhao, be able to rise to the top and realize his ambitions. On this matter, there were two people who were even more enthusiastic than Zhangqiu Jinxiong. One was Consort Taizhen, and the other was Yang Zhao. Both of them were going to be famous giants in the future of Great Tang. Thus, regardless of whether he had the memories of his previous life or not, Wang Chong knew that Zhangqiu Jinxiong's ascension to the throne was inevitable. In his previous life, Big Uncle had chosen the wrong side on this matter, and as a result, he became a thorn in Consort Taizhen's side. But in this life, perhaps due to Wang Chong, Big Uncle had become much more cautious and meticulous. This was also what made Wang Chong glad. If everything goes according to plan, it should be time for that person to ascend to the throne. A figure surfaced in Wang Chong's mind, and he sighed deeply. The tides of history had finally come to this. Zhangqiu Jinxiong would eventually enter the capital, and that person would eventually take over the position of Southern Protector General. These two matters were not things that Wang Chong could prevent with his current strength. This left a deep sense of helplessness in Wang Chong's heart. The tides of history couldn't be defied. What Wang Chong could do was to perfect his plan step by step, and through his own efforts, he would slowly change the tides of history. Looks like I should hurry up. Chapter 230. After leaving the foot of the mountain, Wang Chong wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, he wrote letters to his clan Big Uncle, the Zhang clan, and Li Zhuxin. Li Zhuxin was escorting Zhang Monyan to Jiaoji in secret, so it should be about time. Pu Lang Lang. Carrier pigeons flew above the Kunwa training camp, and it didn't take long for Wang Chong to receive a letter from his clan. The letter was from Wang Chong's mother, and she said that everything was fine at home. However, there was something unexpected. Wang Chong's little sister, Wang Xiaoyao, had actually gone off to learn martial arts. Furthermore, it was said that that person was Wang Chong's teacher. Furthermore, the guards in the clan had confirmed this as well. What's going on? Upon receiving the letter, Wang Chong was dumbfounded. Little sister? Master? He only had a single master, and that was the evil emperor. However, the matter regarding the evil emperor had always been a secret. Wang Chong had never mentioned it to his clan. In fact, his little sister and mother didn't even know of the existence of the evil emperor. What's going on? Why would little sister go to the spirit vein? Besides, doesn't she dislike cultivating? Why would she suddenly become so hardworking? Wang Chong was perplexed. He knew his little sister's personality very well. If she was willing to work hard, there wouldn't be a single scion in the capital who would be a match for her. Even Marchioness Yi wouldn't be a match for his little sister. However, all of this was just Wang Chong's fantastical imagination. His little sister's personality was one of eating and waiting for death. Of the two siblings, his little sister was the true profligate. But now, his little sister actually went off to cultivate? There aren't many people in the clan who know about teacher's matter. Furthermore, I've issued a gag order, so no one will tell her. Could it be that she accidentally overheard it? Or could it be that she noticed the guards and followed them to the spirit vein? Wang Chong also felt a headache when he thought of his little sister's capricious personality. There was a large-scale construction going on at the spiritual vein, and many craftsmen and guards had been sent there. With these guards coming and going, it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't attract his little sister's attention after a long time. That's fine too. My little sister's talent isn't bad, but it's a pity that her personality is too bad. I can't control her, but Master should be able to. It's good for her. Wang Chong's thoughts turned, and he suddenly laughed again. His little sister was born with incredible strength, and even though he was already an Origin Energy Tier 7 expert, he might not be a match for her. However, her master, the evil emperor, was different. With little sister's abilities, I'm afraid she won't be able to cause any waves in front of Master. Furthermore, the evil emperor is not some kind-looking good old man. He is a big shot of the evil path, who has caused people to turn pale at the mere mention of his name. If my little sister tries to be mischievous in front of him, I'm afraid she's just asking for trouble. Putting aside the matter of his little sister, Wang Chong received the second letter from Uncle Li Lin. He had returned to the royal palace, and the imperial army was still heavily restricted. He couldn't possibly be away for long. As for the manor that Wang Chong wanted, he had already left it to someone else. In addition, he also mentioned the matter of Wang Chong's cousin Wang Liang. After more than a month of preparation, and spending a lot of money, they bought a few ships from the seafaring families. In addition, they worked overtime to build a new ship. A total of 4 large ships formed a fleet. Majestically, they finally set off from the southern sea. Wang Liang had made up his mind on this voyage. He had gathered a large number of sea maps, and he had even found 2 old navigators. Adding on the sailors, guards, and Hai Dongqing and Hai Zhan, who were in charge of communications, the group finally began to help Wang Chong search for the meteorite metal. The Wang clan had already dispatched quite a few experts. However, Uncle Li Lin was still worried. He had used his connections to find several retired experts of the imperial army to sneak into the group. Wang Liang had spent his entire life messing around, playing around with petty things, and inventing little things that didn't really matter. Now that he had finally made up his mind to do something big, both Big Ant and Uncle Li Lin were extremely supportive. In the letter, he expressed his gratitude to Wang Chong. Several 100,000 taels of gold had been given to Wang Liang, his cousin, without batting an eyelid. This was already the ultimate form of kinship. Big Ant Wang Ru Shuang and Uncle Li Lin expressed their gratitude again and again. They truly had nothing to say about this nephew of theirs, Wang Chong. As for Wang Chong's search for the meteorite metal, the two of them didn't take it seriously. They both believed that Wang Chong had made up a reason to cheer Wang Liang up. This made the two of them feel even more grateful. I didn't lie a single word about this matter. The purpose of this voyage is really to search for those meteorites. After reading the letter from Big Ant and Uncle Li Lin, a bizarre expression appeared on Wang Chong's face. Even though he had never been out to sea in his entire life, everything he said about the extraterrestrial meteoric iron was true, not a single word of falsehood. His wish to help cousin Wang Liang was true, and so was his wish to find the meteorite metal. Several 100,000 taels of gold was no laughing matter. Even though he might not care too much about it in the future, right now, Wang Chong wasn't at the point where he would treat 300,000 taels of gold lightly. Speaking of which, if cousin has already set out to sea, Mayasame Ayaka should be back soon. Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up, and his expression suddenly relaxed. Wang Chong's eyebrows rose, and his expression suddenly relaxed. If Mayasame Ayaka were here, his situation would be much better. If Mayasame Ayaka were here, his situation would be much better. At the very least, he would have someone he could rely on. Furthermore, Mayasame Ayaka was an assassin, and her senses were sharp. This way, she would be able to detect danger in advance. Now it's up to the Zhang clan, Wang Chong thought. His collaboration with the Zhang clan involved the large mine, the Hyderabad ores, and the production of mini logistics equipment. This was the project that Wang Chong was most concerned about. In Wang Chong's plans, the collaboration with the Zhang clan was of utmost importance. Flutter, flutter. A pigeon flew down from the roof. Around dusk, Wang Chong finally received a letter from the Zhang clan. The Zhang clan placed great importance on this important collaboration partner of Wang Chong. Thus, the one who replied to Wang Chong this time was the head of the Zhang clan. Everything is going smoothly. That's for the best. After reading the letter from the head of the Zhang clan, Wang Chong heaved a long sigh of relief. The head of the Zhang clan explained the progress of the past month in detail. With the support of Wang Chong's large iron ore vein, the Zhang clan's production and smelting swiftly caught up, and they even began to expand on a large scale. On the other hand, Wang Chong's 30-meter-long caltrops and strangely shaped metal plates had been developed from the very start. In a month's time, they had already forged more than 800 caltrops and 3,000 strangely shaped metal plates. Furthermore, all of them were forged from the top-notch metal that Wang Chong had requested, and every single one of them had been reinforced with more than 10 layers of toughening inscriptions. These things could definitely be considered as top-notch war machines. Given the Wang clan's capabilities, they would only be able to produce 200 to 300 of them in a month at most. But the Zhang clan was able to casually forge so many of them. Furthermore, this wasn't even when they were at full capacity. Furthermore, they had only mobilized a portion of the Zhang clan's manpower to forge for Wang Chong. Just this capability in itself was already far beyond that of an outsider clan. Without a doubt, the Zhang clan's blacksmithing prowess was on full display here. Other than that, according to the agreement with Wang Chong, the Zhang clan had already forged 8 Wuxia steel weapons. As for the final quenching and other procedures, they were all waiting for Wang Chong to take over. In the letter, the head of the Zhang clan also asked if Wang Chong was willing to take some time off to help with the final forging. Other than that, there was also a letter from Tuoba Guiyuan. In the letter, Tuoba Guiyuan also mentioned the matter of the Wuxia steel weapons. Wang Chong had been in the Kunwa training camp for more than a month, and this meant that the Imperial Army hadn't sold a single weapon for more than a month. It should be about time. After I master the sword chi of the life-slaying sword, it won't be too late for me to deal with the matters on both sides. Holding on to the letter, Wang Chong fell into deep thought. As for Li Zhuxin's letter, Wang Chong was the last one to receive it. Li Zhuxin escorted Zhang Munian to Jiaoji. At the same time, he was tasked to protect Zhang Munian from the shadows. No matter how far Jiaoji was, it should be around a month's time. In the letter, Li Zhuxin roughly explained the situation. Zhang Munian had already found a foothold in Jiaoji, and with the help of the county magistrate dispatched by the Tang dynasty, Zhang Munian was able to obtain great convenience there. The rice in Jiaoji could be harvested thrice a year, and this made things much more convenient for Zhang Munian. Just as Wang Chong had expected, Zhang Munian immediately displayed great enthusiasm upon arriving at Jiaoji. He even busied himself day and night in the fields, searching for suitable improved seeds. The house that Zhang Munian bought in Jiaoji was a place that Zhang Munian rarely stayed in. After a day, he would spend more than half of his time outside. Sometimes, he would even sleep on the stalks of the fields. Even in his dreams, Li Zhuxin could hear him talking about improved seeds. This left Li Zhuxin worried. Zhang Munian was already old, and he wasn't a youngster anymore. Thus, Li Zhuxin could only try to use his origin energy to massage the other party's muscles, bones, and meridians while he was asleep. In the letter, Li Zhuxin even advised Wang Chong to persuade Zhang Munian not to work so hard. Even though Li Zhuxin didn't say it explicitly, Wang Chong could sense the deep respect Li Zhuxin had for the old man, whom Wang Chong had rescued from the imperial prison. In fact, he even expressed his intention to stay in Jiaoji to protect the old man. Food is the most important thing to the people. After such a long period of time, Wang Chong believed that Li Zhuxin should have understood that Zhang Munian's research would affect the lives of the people. Not only would it benefit the people, it would benefit the future as well. Thus, Wang Chong wasn't surprised by Li Zhuxin's intention to stay in Jiaoji at all. That's fine too. With Li Zhuxin guarding the area, There's no need to worry about the hybrid rice. After a moment of contemplation, Wang Chong nodded his head in agreement with Li Zhuxin's suggestion. Wang Chong's concern for Zhang Munyan and his research wasn't any less than Li Zhuxin's, perhaps even exceeding it. Most of the time, wars occurred in places where the eyes couldn't see. To Wang Chong, Zhang Munyan and his hybrid rice were such existences. In the future, the outcome of a war wouldn't be decided on the battlefield, but these unseen and unnoticed corners. Zhang Munyan was Wang Chong's secret weapon, an artifact that Wang Chong had left behind for the future. In the letter, Li Zhuxin also mentioned a piece of good news. After more than a decade of tireless searching, coupled with Zhang Munyan's lifetime of farming experience, Zhang Munyan had found the first male sterile plant in the farmland of Jiaoji. Li Zhuxin was using Zhang Munyan's original words. He didn't know that these words were actually Wang Chong's masterpiece. Even though the discovery of the male sterile plant wasn't much, it was still far from reaching the hybrid rice. However, to Wang Chong, this was already a huge improvement. Since he was able to find the male sterile plant, the others shouldn't be too far away. Everything is finally on track. Chapter 231. Everything was on the right track. As for what happened next, there was no need for Wang Chong to worry too much about it. Once the snowball started rolling, it would grow thicker and thicker with each passing moment. And for Wang Chong, even though the snowball that he had stacked earlier on hadn't started growing, it was already starting to roll. After meeting with Zhao Jingdian and Wei Hao a few times, Wang Chong quickly returned to his cultivation. Days passed, and Wang Chong improved with each passing day. 8 days later, light surged in the dark chamber. Suddenly, with a qi sound, a brilliant radiance shot out from the tip of Wang Chong's blunt sword. This radiance was as thin as a thread, but it was incredibly bright. At first glance, it was so blinding that one couldn't even open one's eyes. Furthermore, the radiance was extremely condensed, and it didn't weaken in the slightest even after extending for more than a dozen zhang. The radiance swiftly dissipated into nothingness upon coming into contact with the wall a dozen zhang away. This is sword qi. This is great. Upon seeing this radiance, Wang Chong felt incomparably agitated. After studying and comprehending it for over 10 days, he'd finally compressed the vital energy in his body to the limit, and condensed this strand of swift and fierce sword qi that was fine like a gossamer. It might have seemed as thin as a thread, but it was actually the result of compressing a large amount of origin energy in Wang Chong's body. After so many days, I finally managed to condense sword qi. Wang Chong's heart leaped in excitement. Sword qi was also a form of origin energy, but it was compressed to its limits. Because of this, the might of a sword Dao expert was so powerful. At this moment, Wang Chong felt that all his efforts had paid off. Just as he was deep in thought, Wang Chong suddenly felt a bizarre ray of light shooting in. This ray of light didn't come from the door or anywhere else. Instead, it came from the wall in front of him. The place where Wang Chong cultivated was a dark chamber, and there wasn't a single speck of light in it. This was also to get used to the practice of hearing and intuition in Sword Dao. Therefore, when a ray of light shone into the room, it would feel very strange. Strange? I remember there was no light here before. Wang Chong walked in from the ground and walked in the direction of the light. On the wall, about a meter above the ground, there was a small hole that could be vaguely seen. That strange light shone in from this hole. At first, Wang Chong didn't notice it. He even stretched out a finger to touch the wall. But soon, Wang Chong realized it. Wasn't this hole the place where the sword energy from the hit? What's going on? Could it be that the sword qi I shot out just now even pierced through the walls here? Wang Chong was dumbstruck, his entire body frozen. The surrounding walls of the training room he was in were not made of wood, but of steel. It was very difficult to build a room made of steel like this, so the Kunwa training camp only had it on the main peak. Moreover, the training room Wang Chong chose was a very private one, designed for martial artists of rank 7 and above. Wang Chong had checked before. The metal wall here was at least a foot thick. Steel as thick as this could not be easily scratched even by a broadsword. Even if it was a Wuxia steel weapon, it would be very difficult to damage such a thick weapon. But on this wall, there was actually a hair-thin hole. Was the sword energy of the so sharp? Wang Chong suddenly raised the blunt iron sword in his hand, his eyes twitching wildly. Although he was the one who shot it, even Wang Chong couldn't believe it. Swoosh! Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, Wang Chong suddenly raised his head. Without thinking, he swung his sword at the wall in front of him again. Swoosh! A burning, dazzling, and hair-thin ray of light shot out again, disappearing into the thick steel wall. Wang Chong waited for a while, but the room was dark. Apart from the ray of light, there was nothing else. Could it be that I guessed wrong? This hole is not my sword energy? Taken aback, Wang Chong suddenly felt a little uncertain. Could it be that this was all a coincidence? While he was deep in thought, suddenly, a strand of light, as thin as a strand of hair, penetrated the wall and shone into the room. Two tiny rays of light, one on the left and one on the right, were extremely eye-catching. That's right. It was really the result of the sword energy of massacre. As this thought flashed through his mind, Wang Chong stared in a daze at the two tiny rays of light shining through the wall, not even daring to believe that they were his handiwork. I didn't expect Senior Su's sword energy of massacre to be so sharp. I've only cultivated the first strand of the most basic sword energy, but I can already penetrate a steel wall that's a foot thick. If I cultivate it to the extreme, I don't know how terrifying it will be. No wonder Senior Su could single-handedly kill tens of thousands of foreign steel cavalry in the capital. Wang Chong took a deep breath, his heart shivering. This was the first time he experienced the terror of the art of god and demon obliteration. Moreover, it wasn't So Young-sun who told him about it, but Wang Chong himself comprehended it. In that instant, Wang Chong's mind was filled with thoughts, and he suddenly remembered many things from the past. The foreign steel cavalry back then not only had great strength, but they also had a terrifying defense. Their bodies were very dense, strong, and tough, and they had almost no weaknesses. Many fatal injuries had no effect on them. Many powerful techniques used by humans on the battlefield had no effect on them. Even if they were pierced by swords and sabers, they wouldn't be much of a hindrance. Many powerful killing techniques would be greatly reduced when used by them. The offensive and defensive strength of both sides were on completely different levels. Because of this, humans suffered heavy casualties in their battles against them. Many famous foreign armies of the Tang dynasty and the foreign steel cavalry were annihilated right in front of them. Blood and death created the reputation of these foreign steel cavalry, but their strength was even more terrifying than their reputation. On the battlefield, humans were almost completely unable to fight back. Wang Chong had seen 1,000-strong foreign steel cavalry sweep through a human army of nearly 10,000 with his own eyes. Even the army that Wang Chong had trained had been the result of a collective effort, the combined strength of all the human race. That was the last of humanity's strength. But it was under such circumstances that So Young-sun was able to single-handedly kill nearly 10,000 foreign steel cavalry. When Wang Chong heard of this before, he only felt that So Young-sun was very powerful. But he didn't know just how powerful he was. He had been in contact with So Young-sun for more than 3 months. And So Young-sun had never displayed his martial arts in front of him. Even when they parted at the end, he only used the air absorption palm, which wasn't anything special. So in their daily interactions, Wang Chong's understanding of So Young-sun was that this was a stubborn, persistent, isolated old man who was immersed in the past and sorrow, and lived an unhappy life. But as for his strength, Wang Chong couldn't estimate it. This was the first time Wang Chong had a vague understanding of So Young-sun, and the tip of the iceberg of the art of god and demon obliteration. Those foreign cavalry in the capital probably died extremely miserable deaths, Wang Chong said with a sigh. Wang Chong thought, given the might of the art of god and demon obliteration, Wang Chong was sure that those foreign steel cavalry back then must have been riddled with holes. Under such circumstances, no matter how resilient and compact one's body was, death was the only outcome for them. The art of god and demon obliteration is indeed one of the strongest sword arts in the Central Plains. Given the might of this sword qi, even if I were to face a true martial realm expert, I am confident that I can pierce through the stellar energy around their body and threaten their body. At this point, Wang Chong's heart calmed down, and he was even more certain that the art of god and demon obliteration that So Yung-sun gave him was the basic version of the art of god and demon obliteration. This secret art was much more powerful than Wang Chong had imagined. With this secret art, Wang Chong was even more confident that he could carry out his plans. In the next few days, Wang Chong did nothing but cultivate in the dark room, nurturing his sword qi step by step. The cultivation of the art of god and demon obliteration was completely different from ordinary martial arts. To cultivate this kind of top-notch sword art, the first step was to circulate the origin qi in one's meridians and compress it step by step, turning it from thick to thin, becoming denser and denser. When it was compressed to the extreme, when there was only a sliver left, the origin qi would turn into sword qi. This process was extremely difficult to cultivate, but the next step was the most important. When the vital energy was compressed to the extreme and finally turned into sword qi, that was as thin as a gossamer, what he had to do next was to do the opposite. He had to constantly nurture the sword intent and sword qi, and then grow the thin sword qi step by step, from thin to thick, and then to thicker and stronger sword qi step by step. This step was even more difficult to cultivate. The nurturing of sword intent had to be done at all times, not the slightest bit careless. As time slowly passed, Wang Chong's sword intent improved every day. From the thin strand at the beginning, it slowly doubled in size, and then slowly increased. Even though the cultivation of sword qi was different from the growth of one's inner strength, Wang Chong could still sense that his strength was growing by the day. When Wang Chong's sword qi of massacre condensed to the thickness of a chopstick, Wang Chong could clearly sense that the growth of his sword qi had slowed down. Wang Chong was no stranger to this feeling. It was a bottleneck. It's about time. It's probably due to my cultivation realm restricting my cultivation. Given my origin energy tier 7 cultivation, I can only cultivate the sword qi of massacre to this level. If I want to advance further, I'll probably have to wait until I reach origin energy tier 8. In the dark room, with a thought, Wang Chong shot out a surge of sword qi from his fingertip. Different from before, this surge of sword qi wasn't 10 centimeters long but around 3 qi. Its radiance was even more blinding than the sun, and it flickered at the tip of the sword. Only Wang Chong and his sword qi of massacre were capable of such a feat for a mere origin energy realm cultivator to possess such powerful sword qi. This was something only Wang Chong and his sword qi of massacre were capable of. Qi. Wang Chong brandished his sword, and the sword qi sliced across the wall lightly. Immediately, a piece of steel the size of tofu was scraped off from the wall, as though it was nothing. The entire process was unimaginably easy. I'm almost done with my cultivation. It's about time for me to head out. After spending another 2 days in the dark room, Wang Chong finally walked out. And it was at this moment that Wang Chong finally welcomed his guest. After more than 20 days of delay, the future imperial uncle Yang Zhao finally couldn't sit still any longer. Instead of looking for Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen, he ran to the Kunwa training camp to look for Wang Chong. The rules of Kunwa training camp were extremely strict. Even big uncle Wang Zhen had to contact Wang Chong via messenger pigeon if he wished to meet Wang Chong. After which, he had to wait outside the training camp before he could meet Wang Chong. However, Yang Zhao was different. Chapter 232. On the summit of Kunwa Mountain, Yang Zhao was wearing a black silk hat and a plain white robe. His head was held high and his chest was puffed out. He was surrounded by 4 burly and well-built guards of the Jinwu Guards, giving off an extraordinary aura. A cool breeze blew on the summit. Yang Zhao had his hands behind his back and his robe fluttered along with the mountain breeze, giving him an outstanding appearance. It had only been a few months since he entered the capital, but Yang Zhao had already imitated that official's demeanor to a great degree. If one didn't know better, they would have already felt reverence for Yang Zhao and regarded him as a peerless scholar just by looking at his back and appearance. Wang Chong knew about Yang Zhao's background and had also seen him in dire straits. But even so, every time he saw Yang Zhao, Wang Chong couldn't help but sigh in admiration. He also felt some admiration for this future imperial uncle. Putting aside what talent he had to learn, Yang Zhao's studious attitude was truly admirable. Not everyone was as diligent as Yang Zhao and could imitate the demeanor of a great scholar in just 2 to 3 months. Rumor had it that this future imperial uncle was already on good terms with some of the ministers in the imperial court. For a person to be so diligent, even if he's a gambling addict, he's still a genius. Wang Chong sighed inwardly. It wasn't without reason that Yang Zhao was able to climb to such a high position despite his humble origins. In Wang Chong's view, the scene before him was enough to explain a lot of things. Calming himself down, Wang Chong was soon led down by an instructor. Right now, Yang Zhao was patrolling on behalf of the heavens. If Yang Zhao wanted to see him, Wang Chong really couldn't refuse. Buzz! Standing on a protruding rock, Yang Zhao heard the commotion behind him and turned around. Haha, Wang Chong, long time no see. Seeing Wang Chong, Yang Zhao's eyebrows relaxed, and he beamed with joy. He jumped down from the protruding rock and strode over with an enthusiastic look on his face. Lord Yang! Wang Chong also greeted him with a smile. TSK, Wang Chong, I haven't seen you for more than a month, but you look very different this time. Yang Zhao sized up Wang Chong, and he immediately noticed the change in Wang Chong's temperament. He looked surprised. It seems that this Kunwa training camp is really good at training people. I almost don't recognize you anymore. Yang Zhao was right. Although the Wang Chong of the past was capable, he still gave people the feeling that he was a child who didn't have enough experience. But the current Wang Chong was like an unsheathed sword that had been tempered and sharpened, revealing its sharpness. His temperament had also become extremely fierce, and no one dared to underestimate him. No wonder Yang Zhao was surprised that such a big change could happen in just a month and a half. Lord Yang, you flatter me. I'm still me. There's no change. Wang Chong denied it with a smile. He knew very well that this was not the power of the Kunwa training camp at all, but the change caused by the influence of the sword Qi and sword Will of Slaughter, So Yong-sun's life-killing sword. But Wang Chong would not reveal this in front of Yang Zhao. Hee, of course you can't see it. But we can see it. Yang Zhao looked at Wang Chong with a strange look in his eyes. Well, that's enough. You can leave now. I would like to take a walk with young Master Wang. Yang Zhao suddenly walked past Wang Chong and spoke to the instructor, who informed Wang Chong. Then, he waved his hands and dismissed the 4 chamberlains of imperial insignia. Hee, little brother, are you interested in taking a walk with me? When there was no one around, Yang Zhao suddenly smiled and extended his palm to Wang Chong. If anyone else were here, they would surely be shocked. To think that the cousin of consort Tai Zhen would become sworn brothers with the son of Duke Jiao. Hee, big brother, please lead the way. Hearing the change in Yang Zhao's manner of address, Wang Chong immediately understood and followed behind. The two of them walked side by side, one on the left and the other on the right. Big brother, is there anything you need? Wang Chong went straight to the point. Let's talk about it. Yang Zhao purposely put on a hesitant expression, as if he found it hard to speak. To tell you the truth, I have come to the Kunwa training camp with a request. Oh. Wang Chong looked at Wang Chong doubtfully, but he was chuckling inside. Most likely, Yang Zhao didn't know that big uncle Wang Zhen was already here. Even though Wang Chong didn't pay much attention to the affairs of the royal court, he knew that big uncle Wang Zhen was right. The matter of Zhangqiu Jinxiong entering the royal court had probably reached a critical juncture. Or rather, this matter seemed to be a little uncertain at the moment. The matter of Zhangqiu Jinxiong entering the great court had probably reached a critical juncture. Or rather, this matter seemed a little uncertain right now. The matter of Zhangqiu Jinxiong entering the royal court had probably reached a critical juncture. Looks like Yang Zhao is even more anxious than Zhangqiu Jinxiong on this matter. Wang Chong thought. I don't know. Second brother doesn't pay much attention to the royal court. The matter of Southern Protector General Zhangqiu Jinxiong entering the royal court has already caused a huge uproar in the royal court. In truth, back when I was in Jiannan, Lord Zhangqiu helped me a lot. If not for him, Yang Zhao would have already starved to death on the road to Jiannan Pass. This time, Lord Zhangqiu wishes to enter the Bureau of Military Personnel. Yang Zhao thinks that one mustn't forget one's roots. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Lord Zhangqiu once helped me and saved my life. So this time, no matter what, I hope to fulfill this dream of his. Yang Zhao said earnestly. Those who didn't know the truth might really think that Yang Zhao was doing this to repay a debt of gratitude. However, Wang Chong already knew the ins and outs of this matter. Regardless of what Yang Zhao's reason was, there was one thing that was certain. Yang Zhao wanted to insert Zhangqiu Jinxiong into the royal court, so as to pave the way for him to ascend to the throne. Working hard for Zhangqiu Jinxiong was ultimately for himself. Similarly, Consort Taizhen shared the same sentiments behind this matter. It was too lonely in the royal court, especially after experiencing the Consort Taizhen incident and being ostracized by the other officials. The fervor in Consort Taizhen's heart was probably no less than Zhangqiu Jinxiong's. Big brother, what do you wish for me to do? Wang Chong flung his sleeves lightly as he walked down the spine of Kunwa Mountain together with Yang Zhao. Second brother, I know that your big uncle is an influential official in the royal court, and the Wang clan wields great influence in the royal court. I know that this request of mine is a little overboard, but I am indebted to Lord Zhangqiu. Can I ask your big uncle to? As Yang Zhao spoke, he found it hard to continue. Of course. Before Yang Zhao could finish his words, Wang Chong suddenly burst into laughter and said resolutely. Yang Zhao was stunned. Why you can? Second brother. You don't even know what I am talking about. Hee. Didn't you want me to ask my big uncle to support Lord Zhangqiu Jinxiong in the royal court? Wang Chong said. Yang Zhao stared at Wang Chong in disbelief, completely dumbfounded. It wasn't easy to convince Wang Chong to persuade his big uncle to support Zhangqiu Jinxiong. After all, this request was indeed a little overboard. In his heart, Yang Zhao had already made all sorts of preparations. Just that, he didn't expect that none of the methods that Yang Zhao had prepared would be useful. Before he could even finish his words, Wang Chong had already agreed to it. The surprise came so quickly that Yang Zhao was caught off guard. Second brother, are you really going to agree to it? Yang Zhao was still in disbelief, and he couldn't help but feel anxious. Wang Chong nodded. Big uncle had already told him that Yang Zhao would come to look for him. Since Zhangqiu Jinxiong was going to enter the capital sooner or later, it was best for him to agree to it, so that Zhangqiu Jinxiong wouldn't owe him a huge debt of gratitude. Since Big Brother has spoken, if there's a need, I can make a trip down the mountain to look for my big uncle personally, Wang Chong said. That's great. Second brother, allow me to thank you on behalf of Lord Zhangqiu. Yang Zhao was overjoyed. He knew of Wang Chong's current standing in the Wang clan. On the day Wang Chong was released from prison, even the king of Song went to his residence to welcome him. From this, one could imagine how high Wang Chong's standing was. If Wang Chong were to appear, the chances of this matter succeeding would be much higher. Second brother, if this matter succeeds and Lord Zhangqiu becomes the Minister of War, I'll definitely introduce him to you. I'll have him thank you properly. Yang Zhao said happily. He had already contacted quite a few people in the royal court, but it was a pity that none of them dared to step forward. For the time being, he was completely helpless. If the Wang clan and Wang Chong's big uncle were to make a call, given the Wang clan's influence and Consort Taizhen's influence, there was a high chance that this matter would succeed. This matter concerned his future. Yang Zhao had no choice but to get acquainted with it. We'll talk about this matter after Lord Zhangqiu succeeds. Right, big brother, you came from the south. I would like to ask if you know a Lord Zhang Wentua? Wang Chong asked casually, but his eyes were staring intently at Yang Zhao. It was clear that he was very concerned about this matter. Jiannan Commander-in-Chief Zhang Wentua? Yang Zhao asked in astonishment. Despite the short name, Wang Chong's heart jolted in shock. Zhang Wentua. To think that Yang Zhao would really be acquainted with Zhang Wentua from the south. In a flash, Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil, countless thoughts flitting through it. Second brother, why would you ask this question? Could it be that your Wang clan is acquainted with Zhang Wentua? Yang Zhao's astonished voice sounded in Wang Chong's ears. Yang Zhao was indeed perplexed. Zhang Wentua was the commander-in-chief of Jiannan. Even though it sounded like a significant position, it was just a title given to him in name. In truth, his authority wasn't too great. In the Tang dynasty, there were at least 100 commanders-in-chief like Zhang Wentua. In the Tang dynasty, there were only a handful of people who knew of the name Zhang Wentua. Yang Zhao was perplexed as to why Wang Chong would be associated with such a person. He had stayed in Jiannan before. Even so, he didn't pay much attention to this Jiannan commander-in-chief. However, as a scion of the capital, Wang Chong had never stepped out of the borders of the capital. It was truly perplexing that he would know of a mere commander-in-chief by the borders. Wang Chong didn't say a word. He could see Yang Zhao's expression clearly. Wang Chong knew what Wang Chong was thinking. The current Zhang Wentua was indeed an unknown figure, but Wang Chong knew that his name would resound across the entire Middle Earth in the future, influencing the fate of the entire Tang dynasty. On top of that, the lives of the 180,000 elites of the Tang dynasty would be tied together. This unknown Zhang Wentua would become an existence that no one could ignore in 2 years' time. Chapter 233. Hehe. I've only heard of Prefect Zhang's name from my family. Right, I heard that Prefect Zhang is a womanizer? Wang Chong feigned nonchalance. Ha ha ha, brother, where did you hear that from? Hearing Wang Chong's comical words, Yang Zhao couldn't help but burst into laughter. Zhang Wentua is a military general, and I've only seen him from afar once. He's an extremely courageous man. I've never seen him enter a brothel before. Many people laugh at him, saying that he's a monk. However, I did hear from Lord Zhangqiu that Prefect Zhang is a henpecked husband. Second younger brother, where did you hear such a ridiculous thing? Henpecked husband? A dark glint flashed across Wang Chong's eyes. Haha, I get it now. Brother, you're not young anymore. You should know how it feels to be a woman now. Don't worry, when you're free, I'll bring you to the brothel in the capital after you leave the Kunwa training camp. Yang Zhao spoke as though he was a seasoned veteran, and Wang Chong felt a headache coming on. This wasn't the reason why he asked about Zhang Wentua. Yang Zhao had clearly misunderstood his intentions. Wang Chong hurriedly interjected to divert Yang Zhao's attention, after which he probed about Jiannan Prefect Zhang Wentua, before finding an excuse to send Yang Zhao back. Zhang Wentua is a henpecked husband? What's going on? After Yang Zhao left, Wang Chong sat on a boulder at the foot of the mountain and fell into deep thought. Even before Yang Zhao left, he had taken Wang Chong's final question as a joke. If he knew what he was thinking, and why he would ask about Zhang Wentua, Wang Chong dared to bet that Yang Zhao would be dumbfounded. In truth, when that matter broke out in the future, Wang Chong was sure that when Yang Zhao recalled today's conversation, he would definitely be greatly shocked. Wang Chong didn't ask about Zhang Wentua casually. The Battle of Nanzhao. This was the real reason why Wang Chong asked about this matter. In the future, the Great Tang would face an enormous and bitter war in the southeast. In the Great Tang's history of invincibility, this was its first and most grievous defeat. 180,000 elite Tang soldiers, as well as countless officers, lay forever on the battlefield of the Great Tang's southeast, their blood flowing in rivers as they died. This defeat shook the entire Central Plains, and it would affect the fate of the Tang dynasty for decades to come. The Annan Protectorate Manor, which Zhangqiu Jinxiong had guarded for decades, was disbanded, and the 5 great protectorates were reduced to the 4 great protectorates. The southern edge of the empire lost its barrier, and countless civilians were affected. The casualties numbered in the millions. And all of this, if one were to look into it, was because of a man and 2 women. The man was the Jiannan commander-in-chief, Zhang Wentua, and the 2 women. Those 2 women weren't ordinary women. They were the beautiful wife and daughter of the king of Mengxi Zhao, Jelifeng. No one witnessed the entire incident, and that was because it was impossible for such a thing to happen. Wang Chong only knew the truth, that he was familiar with later on. Zhang Wentuo was lustful by nature. In the vassal state of the Tang dynasty, the wife and daughter of the king of Mengxi Zhao, Zhelifeng, found an opportunity to pay a visit to the capital, and they were raped and murdered in the city lord manor. When Zhelifeng received the news, he flew into a rage and led an army to attack the Tang dynasty to exact vengeance for his wife and daughter. In the end, Zhang Wentuo also died in this war. Zhang Wentuo was lustful and humiliated the wife and daughter of the king of Mengxi Zhao, Zhelifeng. This led to the war, and 180,000 elite Tang dynasty soldiers were buried in the southeast. Such a heinous crime wasn't to be regretted even if he died. After the Battle of Nanzhao, the anger of the entire nation was focused on Zhang Wentuo. There were even people who dug up Zhang Wentuo's corpse and whipped it to vent their anger. After that war, Zhang Wentuo was condemned by the entire nation. Wang Chong didn't know any Zhang Wentuo. Jiannan was simply too far away, and Zhang Wentuo was simply too low profile. Even someone like Yang Zhao, who had spent time in Jiannan, didn't know much about Zhang Wentuo, let alone others. However, Wang Chong still felt that there was something fishy about the Jiannan incident that led to the Battle of Nanzhao. The reason was simple. Zhang Wentuo had committed suicide. Zhelifeng had mobilized his army to attack the city. As the governor of Jiannan, Zhang Wentuo knew that he had committed a grave sin. Thus, he didn't choose to retreat or escape. Instead, he chose to commit suicide to atone for his crimes. This was something that even Zhelifeng couldn't deny. No one knew who was in the right and who was in the wrong back then. This was because everything had happened in the city lord manor. If Zhang Wentuo had really abducted Zhelifeng's wife and daughter, then he would definitely conceal such a secretive matter from the public, not letting outsiders know about it. Other than those close to him, it was impossible for anyone else to know about it. This included Zhangqiu Jinxiong, who Yang Zhao said knew him very well. However, in that battle, everyone close to Zhang Wentuo, including himself, had died. As such, the truth would never be known. And all of the truth had come from Zhelifeng's mouth alone. However, Zhelifeng wasn't in the city during that incident. How could he, as the emperor of Mengxi Zhao, know about the affairs of the Tang dynasty? No one was able to verify this matter back then, needless to say in the future. However, there was one thing that Wang Chong was certain of. It was impossible for a lustful person to commit suicide for his country. He might have been killed by those close to him, or he might have been killed by his enemies during the war. But it was impossible for him to commit suicide. As the saying goes, lust blinds one's mind. Those who would commit such acts would likely choose to retreat or escape, but it was impossible for them to commit suicide. A person who indulged in lust would never have the courage to commit suicide. Furthermore, Yang Zhao had also said that Zhang Wentuo was a henpecked man who didn't like lust, and he would never go to a brothel. On this point, Wang Chong trusted him completely. However, Zhelifeng's wife and daughter had indeed died in Jiannan, and this was something that couldn't be denied. Zhelifeng was the leader of a generation. Although he was also extremely ambitious, he wouldn't joke about being cuckolded. The entire Jiannan incident was shrouded in mystery, and there were too many inconsistencies and contradictions in it. In his previous life, this was destined to be a mystery that no one could unravel. But in this life, no matter what, Wang Chong was determined to unravel this mystery. This was because Wang Chong knew that Zhang Wentuo's life wasn't at stake alone, but the lives of millions of soldiers and civilians of the Tang dynasty, as well as every single person living in the Central Plains. If Zhangqiu Jinxiong were to become the ruler of the Central Plains, it would only be a matter of time before he enters the capital. As the Jiannan commander-in-chief, Zhang Wentuo would have to enter the capital once every 3 years to report on his duties. This year's transfer of the Southern Protector General is a huge matter. Even if it wasn't the 3-year deadline, Zhang Wentuo would still have to enter the capital once to be questioned by the Holy Emperor and the royal court. When Zhang Wentuo enters the capital, at that time, whether it is true or false, whether Zhang Wentuo is truly loyal to the emperor and his country, and has suffered an injustice, or whether he is a man with 2 faces, a man who appears to be loyal and treacherous, a treacherous hero with great forbearance, At that time we will know. Wang Chong raised his head to look at the clouds in the sky, and many thoughts were running through his mind. Zhang Wentuo was a commander-in-chief of the Tang dynasty, and not everyone would have the opportunity to come into contact with him. However, Wang Chong and the Wang clan would definitely have the opportunity to do so. Zhang Wentuo's arrival in the capital will take at least 2 months. There's no need to rush into this matter. After a moment of contemplation, Wang Chong left the foot of the mountain. Right now, he had another important matter to attend to. Gongzi. At the foot of the mountain, in a low-lying area filled with lush trees, Wang Chong saw Zhuang Jingping and Qi Siwei. When the two of them saw Wang Chong, they could vaguely sense the sword qi in his body, and a sliver of fear flashed through their eyes. Zhuang Jingping, Qi Siwei, have you brought the experts from your clans? Wang Chong said. They have long been here. The two of them nodded. They had rushed over upon receiving Wang Chong's message. Upon hearing that Wang Chong wanted to mobilize the experts from the Zhuang and Qi clans, how could they dare to delay? Yi! 2 sharp cries sounded, and in an instant, the earth trembled and dust billowed. The sound of galloping horses could be heard from the forest in the distance. Wherever the galloping horses passed, the trees would creak loudly. It was as though a massive beast was charging out of the forest. Neigh! A long neigh could be heard, and in the blink of an eye, a monstrous and huge horse could be seen leaping out of the forest. The huge war horse galloped over 10 zhang away, flying high above everyone's heads. At that moment, Wang Chong could clearly see a tall and muscular heavy-armored knight on the back of the horse. His eyes were filled with disdain, and his aura was astonishing. That fluttering cape seemed to cover the entire sky. Bang! The war horse landed on all fours, and with a turn, it landed behind Wang Chong and the others. Beneath the war horse, a brilliant light burst forth. In an instant, a dazzling blue halo of thorns rippled out from the war horse's hooves and spread out in all directions. Young master! The heavy-armored knight from the Zhuang clan sat on top of the horse, looking straight ahead. His entire body was emitting a heavy aura that was as heavy as steel. Although Wang Chong didn't know his background, he could feel a strong sense of threat from him. Without a doubt, this person was very powerful. The Zhuang clan's iron cavalry is indeed worthy of its name. Wang Chong looked at the heavy-armored knight with a strange look in his eyes. The number of iron cavalry in the Zhuang clan was limited. When he became the commander of the Zhuang clan, most of the iron cavalry in the Zhuang clan had died on the battlefield. Therefore, Wang Chong didn't have the chance to meet the famous iron cavalry of the Zhuang clan. This was the first time he saw the famous iron cavalry of the Zhuang clan. The war horse of the Zhuang clan was especially strong and tall. It was a head taller than ordinary war horses. Moreover, its bones and muscles were especially strong and powerful. The most obvious ones were its 4 limbs and neck. The muscles were bulging, and they were full of power. Chapter 234. Chapter 335, Good Steeds. Wang Chong was overjoyed. As a cavalryman, half of their strength came from their steeds. As a former Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, Wang Chong was quite fond of these steel steeds. Steeds, armor, and knights all require special training. The Zhuang clan has undoubtedly formed a system. These steel steeds are extremely important to the clan. No wonder the Zhuang clan has such strict restrictions on them. Wang Chong thought to himself. Kacha kacha. Just as he was deep in thought, a series of crisp snapping sounds came from the forest. Amidst the snapping sounds, one tree after another fell to the ground. One could vaguely make out the sound of a sharp object chopping something. In the forest, no matter how thick or thin the trees were, there was nothing that could stop a sharp object from chopping down. Boom boom boom. A moment later, 3 huge trees were chopped down in front of everyone. The huge tree trunks fell in 3 different directions. Behind the trees, 2 burly men with bulky limbs walked out of the forest calmly. They looked like glaring vajras, and they were fully armored. Their gazes were sharp, and their footsteps were uniform. But the most eye-catching of all were the huge axes in their hands. The imposing aura they exuded made it seem as if they could even split a mountain in half. The Qi clan steel guards. Even without Qi Weixi's introduction, Wang Chong already knew the identity of these axe-wielding men. The axes of the Qi clan were exquisitely made. Not only was the surface as smooth as a mirror, there was also a blood-red coiling dragon on each side. The Qi clan's axes were more than 3 Qi long, and anyone who laid eyes on them would shudder in fear. If the Qi clan's steel guards were placed on the battlefield, they would be able to split men and horses into two. In an intense battlefield, these people were the best weapons to break through head-on. There was almost nothing that could stop those terrifying axes. Young master. The two of them murmured to each other, and nodded slightly as a form of greeting. Be it the Zhuang clan or the Qi clan, these steel steeds and steel guards were strategic forces with special identities. This is young master Wang Chong, a descendant of Duke Jiao. For the next few days, they will follow young master and do their best to assist him. Zhuang Jinping and Qi Weiqi ordered their cavalry and guards. Yes, young master. Hearing the name Duke Jiao, the Zhuang family's cavalrymen and the two Qi family's steel guards immediately showed respect in their eyes. In the Tang dynasty, Duke Jiao was highly respected. This was not only in the court, but also in the army. If this person was of Duke Jiao's bloodline, then his identity could be deduced. Thinking of this, the few of them became even more respectful. Young master, are these people enough? Do you want us to transfer more people over? Yes, although it's very difficult to mobilize the power of the family. However, if it's young master Wang, I believe that the clan will agree to it. Zhuang Jinping and Qi Weiqi said. When they entered the Kunwa training camp this time, the two of them had received orders to befriend Wang Chong of the Wang family no matter what. The family would go all out for any need. There's no need. These people are enough. Wang Chong waved his hands, rejecting their kind intentions. What he was going to do next wasn't to fight head-on on the battlefield. Furthermore, this wasn't something that could be resolved with just a direct confrontation. The three of them were more than enough. Come out. After Zhuang Jinping and Qi Weiqi left, Wang Chong suddenly stopped in the forest. Clang! In an instant, sabers and axes vibrated, and battle armor buzzed. The two Qi family's steel guards and Zhuang family's cavalrymen gathered their strength as they surveyed their surroundings warily. Yet the surroundings were completely silent. Other than the whistling of the wind, there was nothing else. Young master. The three of them turned around and looked at Wang Chong in astonishment. They were all true martial realm experts, but they didn't notice anything at all. They had no idea how an origin energy realm cultivator, like Wang Chong, managed to notice anything. Wang Chong smiled faintly as he surveyed the surroundings, not bothering to explain anything. So, without the slightest sign, at a place very close to the crowd, with a swoosh, a petite black shadow suddenly appeared. She leaped from the branches of a camphor tree and suddenly swept over the top of the crowd's head, leaving behind countless afterimages. Her speed was inconceivable. Be careful. Enemy attack. The three of them exclaimed in shock. Chi! The air split apart as two massive axes cleaved down at the black figure above them with lightning speed. At the same time, the cavalrymen on horseback were also startled. The steel spears in their hands trembled, and like an enraged dragon, they stabbed at the black figure above them. Clang! That petite black shadow lightly tapped the ground with the tip of her foot. In midair, she lightly tapped the surface of the axes of the two Qi family iron guards, as if she was flipping over the ground. At the same time, the sword at her waist flicked lightly, striking the tip of the Zhuang family steel guard's spear. Borrowing the momentum, she somersaulted in the air and landed lightly on the ground on the other side. This miraculous scene left the three of them dumbfounded. They had never met such a formidable opponent before. Her entire body was light as a feather, as though she wasn't affected by any force at all. Kill her. The faces of the trio froze, and killing intent surged in their hearts. The war steeds neighed loudly, and the spear lord roared loudly. Just as they were about to strike the black figure down from their steeds. Stop! In an instant, a voice sounded from behind. Mayase Mayaka, come over here. On the ground, the petite black figure slowly stood up and casually sheathed the two long swords in her hands back to her waist. So Gongzi is acquainted with her. The Zhuang family steel guards and Qi family steel guards swiftly retracted their weapons and retreated. However, a tinge of fear still surfaced in their hearts. Even though the black-clothed assassin was a lady, her strength was astounding. Even with the combined strength of the three of them, they were still unable to deal with her. How is it? Did anything go wrong? Wang Chong looked at Mayasame Ayaka and said. It had been almost 2 months since they last met, and Mayasame Ayaka's strength had grown much stronger than before. Her movements had also become much more relaxed. No. Knowing what Wang Chong was asking, Mayasame Ayaka shook her head. Those who entered the fleet didn't pose any problems. Occasionally, there were a few fellows with ulterior motives, but I dealt with them personally. Mayasame Ayaka didn't remove the black cloth covering her face, revealing only her eyes. Mayasame Ayaka didn't like to reveal her identity in the presence of outsiders. Gongzi, is this your new subordinate? Mayasame Ayaka glanced at them and asked. How is it? Wang Chong smiled. Not bad, just that her body is a little too clumsy. With her strength, it's impossible for her to protect Gongzi. Mayasame Ayaka replied calmly. Bastard, what are you talking about? The trio flew into a rage. I'm just speaking the truth. Mayasame Ayaka harumphed coldly. Ignoring the trio, she walked over to Wang Chong's side. Her arrogance made the trio glare at her angrily. Wang Chong chuckled inside. It was likely that Mayasame Ayaka was displeased that he had invited these 3 men over after she left, so she intentionally said those words. Alright, they are all brave warriors on the battlefield. The battlefield is about strength and might, and it's completely different from the nimble, agile, and swift style of you assassins. Wang Chong smiled. The style of the battlefield was completely different from a life-and-death duel between martial artists. If the steel cavalry of the Zhuang clan and the steel guards of the Qi clan were to be placed on the battlefield, they would be able to slaughter countless enemies. But against assassins, they would be unable to exert any strength at all. Of course, on the other hand, on a battlefield of tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of people, there wasn't much room for maneuver. As such, assassins wouldn't necessarily be much stronger than warriors. After hearing Wang Chong's words, the trio's complexion improved significantly. Gongzi, where are we going now? Mayasame Ayaka asked. She had been back for quite some time now, but she hadn't seen Wang Chong leave the mountain. His sudden departure meant that he had something up his sleeves. Hee, you'll know once you follow me. With a flick of his sleeve, Wang Chong began to walk forward. At the west of the city, near the falling jade pavilion, there was a majestic gambling den that stood amidst a cluster of buildings. On the arched golden roof stood a golden 3-legged golden crow instead of a common dragon species in the Middle Earth. Other than that, this gambling den didn't look any different from the other gambling dens in the Central Plains. In fact, beneath the roof were rows of red lanterns. Golden Sky Gambling Den. Wang Chong was seated on the railing of the second floor of a tavern opposite the gambling den. Sipping on green wine, he surveyed the gambling den with interest. The 3-legged crow was a symbol of faith and worship for the Goguryans, and it wasn't a secret to Wang Chong. However, there weren't many people in the Central Plains who knew about it. After all, Goguryeo was situated in the northeast, a long distance away. On top of that, the Goguryeo Empire had a strict customs policy, so there weren't many people in the Central Plains who knew about it. The west of the city was the territory of the Goguryans. Most of the places where the 3-legged crow was hung, or where the carvings of the 3-legged crow could be seen, were Goguryans' territories. In fact, even the tavern that Wang Chong was in at the moment was likely the property of the Goguryans. Seated on the railing, Wang Chong narrowed his eyes as many thoughts flashed through his mind. The Goguryeo Empire had a strict customs policy, forbidding outsiders from entering, especially those from the Central Plains Tang dynasty. Thus, it wasn't easy to infiltrate their country. However, the Central Plains Tang dynasty was completely different from them. Regardless of which power they were at war with, the Tang dynasty never forbade the entry of other countries. It was a completely tolerant attitude, accommodating those from other countries. All merchants were protected under the Tang dynasty. In fact, Even the Chamberlain of Dependencies had set up a law specifically to protect these merchants who came to trade. Even though Wang Chong was dissatisfied with many of the actions of the Chamberlain of Dependencies, he had to admit that the Tang dynasty's open and tolerant attitude had benefited him greatly. It was clear that the Great Tang's current prosperity was inextricably linked to this open and tolerant attitude toward trade. This was also the reason why the Goguryans were able to survive in the capital of the Tang dynasty, despite the tense relationship between the Goguryan Empire and the Tang dynasty. The Goguryans even opened gambling dens, taverns, tea houses, horse stalls, and so on, and the Tang dynasty never forbade them from doing so. It wasn't that the Tang dynasty was so heartless. The Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments had worked together to investigate them, and they even had a team specially assigned to monitor these Goguryans day and night. But the final result was that there was nothing wrong with these Goguryans. They were all pure merchants. This surveillance lasted for more than a decade, and eventually, even the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments gave up on it. Chapter 235. Have you made the necessary arrangements? Wang Chong tapped on the railing lightly with his index and middle finger, producing a crisp sound. Everything is ready. Mayasame Ayaka replied calmly. She stood behind Wang Chong with her head held high and her hands behind her back, not moving in the slightest. In such a short period of time, she had already changed her attire. She was wearing a black bamboo hat with a thin veil hanging down around it. As the veil shook slightly, it completely covered her face, making it blurry and indistinct. However, her eyes were still as cold as ever. Even through the veil, one could still feel a chill seeping into their bones. Mayasame Ayaka's disposition as an assassin was deeply ingrained in her bones. Regardless of what she wore, it was impossible to conceal it. Very well. Tell them to pay attention to the person with a white halo around him later on. We only have an instant, so make sure to keep a close eye on him. Also, you just have to watch carefully. No one is to make a move. Wang Chong said impassively. As he spoke, he stretched out his arm and passed the wine cup in his hand over. It was indeed a little early for a 15-year-old to be drinking, but he could still learn to interact with it. Not to mention, there was another soul hidden in his body. But Gongzi, is this really fine? This is the territory of the Goguryans. Furthermore, when we were discussing this matter, we were in the abode of the Goguryans. Mayasame Ayaka squatted down slightly and took the cup from Wang Chong's hands naturally before placing it on the table by the side. The women of Yingzhou were surprisingly docile in this aspect. Even though Mayasame Ayaka had become an assassin, she was still able to maintain her composure. Of course, this was only applied to those who were stronger than her. The Goguryans are vicious, and there are many of them. If we were to anger them, we might not be able to leave this place. Mayasame Ayaka glanced at Wang Chong with deep worry in her eyes. Ordinary people knew nothing about the Goguryans, so they were able to remain calm here. But to those who knew the ins and outs of the Goguryans, standing in this place was like a dagger to their backs. This was the feeling that Mayasame Ayaka was experiencing at the moment. She had crossed hands with the Goguryans before, and they were fearsome people. When they fought, they were even more ferocious than assassins like them. Mayasame Ayaka couldn't help but worry that Wang Chong intended to deal with them in the territory of the Goguryans. Who said that this is the territory of the Goguryans? This is still the territory of the Central Plains. So when did the Goguryans have the right to call the shots here? Wang Chong stretched out a hand and leaned on the railing. He looked at the dense crowd outside and sneered. The Central Plains was still around, and the Tang dynasty was still around. The calamity hadn't arrived yet, and the Central Plains wasn't so weak that it had to bow down to the Goguryans. When did the Goguryans become the ones making the decisions here? In the past, they didn't make a move on the Goguryans because the Goguryans were well-behaved and didn't do anything too outrageous. However, since they were restless and wanted to make a move on the Tang dynasty, everything was different. At this point, Wang Chong gazed out of the railing, and his eyes turned colder and colder. Not even Wang Chong himself had sensed that as he spoke. His body was exuding a chilling and domineering aura. The 3 cavalrymen from the Zhuang clan and the Qi clan guards were taken aback. Even Mayasame Ayaka was dumbfounded. This Wang Chong exuded an intimidating aura that instilled fear in others. It was completely different from their impression of him. But even so, we don't have any evidence. We don't have any evidence to prove that the Gogurians are related to the people here. If we are careless and leave behind some evidence, the Chamberlain of Dependencies might turn against Gongzi. Mayasame Ayaka said worriedly. She knew what Wang Chong was up to be assaulted by the Gogurians on his first day in the camp, and nearly die on White Tiger Peak. Anyone would be infuriated. However, the Gogurians in the West were different from others. Even though they were known to be loan sharks and teach those who didn't pay their debts a lesson, other than that, they didn't do anything out of line. Otherwise, the Tang dynasty wouldn't have tolerated them. Hehe, evidence? Of course I will. Wang Chong sneered coldly as a cold glint flashed across his eyes. It seemed like the fact that the Gogurians in the west of the city were law-abiding citizens had spread far and wide. Even an assassin like Mayasame Ayaka knew that there was nothing wrong with the Gogurians. However, Wang Chong had a completely different view of the matter. King Sojuram and his group of Gogurian assassins were infamous in Great Tang, and everyone knew of them, even though many people claimed that they had nothing to do with the Gogurians in the West. But how could Wang Chong possibly believe them? Birds of a feather flocked together. It was impossible for a person to leave their source. How could it be possible for King Sojuram and his group of Gogurian assassins to have nothing to do with the Gogurians here? With so many Gogurians here, this was the best hiding place for King Sojuram and his group of Gogurians. Other than here, King Sojuram and his group of assassins wouldn't be able to do as they pleased anywhere else. Even though the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments had been monitoring them for decades, they didn't manage to find anything. But in Wang Chong's view, they had missed out on an important corner: the densely packed customers who frequented the taverns and gambling dens. Who said that Gogurians could only work in Gogurian restaurants, gambling dens and shops as Gogurians. Why couldn't Gogurians pretend to be Han? As long as one could master the language of the Central Plains, there would be no difference between a Gogurian and a Han. Wang Chong had thought it through before. The Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments weren't useless people. The only reason why they hadn't found anything in the past decades was that they had been heading in the wrong direction from the start. The person they were looking for wasn't in the taverns or taverns. Rather, it was somewhere else. Make the arrangements and have them carry it out immediately. Recovering from his daze, Wang Chong waved his hands. Yes, Gongzi. After a moment of hesitation, Mayasame Ayaka nodded. Outside the railing, a huge crowd could be seen. Standing in the tavern, Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka didn't attract anyone's attention. In such a luxurious place, there were simply too many scions like Wang Chong. Time slowly ticked by, and around half a tea's time later, Wang Chong finally stood up. Amidst the bewildered gazes of the crowd, he slowly walked to the railing. Whether these Gogurians are innocent or not, we'll know soon enough. Wang Chong's gaze swept past the railing and landed on the huge crowd outside. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Pung! Without any warning, Wang Chong raised his right leg and stomped lightly on the ground. Pung! In the next instant, an invisible ripple spread out in all directions with Wang Chong at the center. In the most prosperous area of the Gogurian-controlled territory in the west of the city, Wang Chong released his bane of the battlefield halo. The royal court had never been able to differentiate between real Gogurian merchants and Gogurian assassins. But Wang Chong was different. The bane of the battlefield halo was the best way to identify such Gogurians. Wang. The crowd outside the railing was silent, and there didn't seem to be any changes. Looking outside, Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up. Did I guess wrongly? Just when Wang Chong thought that his bane of the battlefield halo was ineffective, a sudden change occurred. In Wang Chong's sight, a white ripple suddenly appeared amidst the crowd, enveloping a plump man who seemed to be a wealthy merchant of the Central Plains. Then, a second, a third, 11, 12, 13, 30, 40, 50. In just a short period of time, several hundred ripples of light appeared amidst the crowd in Golden Sky Gambling Den Wang. In just an instant, the white ripples vanished without a trace. It was so fast that one thought it was just an illusion. On the second floor of the tavern, Mayasame Ayaka and the Zhuang clan's cavalrymen and the Qi clan's guards had already noticed them. Even Wang Chong himself was so stunned that he couldn't speak. The surroundings were deathly silent. To think that there would be so many of them. The phenomenon caused by the bane of the battlefield only lasted for a short instant before vanishing. However, Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil. In Wang Chong's initial plan, the bane of the battlefield halo was to identify the few Gogurians in the crowd. But the outcome far exceeded Wang Chong's expectations. There were actually several hundred orthodox Gogurian warriors in the vicinity of a Golden Sky Gambling Denver. This number far exceeded Wang Chong's expectations. Furthermore, at the very last moment, Wang Chong clearly saw that the Gogurian warriors were dressed in Han attire. Regardless of how they moved, it was impossible to discern them at all. Wang Chong's conjecture had been verified. Did you see it clearly? Wang Chong asked. Behind him it was quiet. Everyone was stunned by the scene just now. Gongzi, you've really guessed it. Mayasame Ayaka took in a deep breath. Deep astonishment could be heard in her voice. She had no idea how those white ripples appeared. But after hearing Wang Chong's warning, no matter how slow Mayasame Ayaka's reaction was, she could easily guess that those caught in the white ripples were the real targets. But wasn't this number a little too much? Lord, these Gogurians, shut up. Stop talking. Behind her, the Zhuang clan cavalrymen and Qi clan guards were shocked as well. But before they could finish their words, Mayasame Ayaka had already interrupted them. This place was too sensitive, and it wasn't a good place to talk about the Gogurians. It would have been fine if she didn't know, but now that she did, the atmosphere in this place immediately changed. Even Mayasame Ayaka couldn't help but reveal a fearful expression. Don't bother too much about it. You should have seen the situation clearly, right? Let's settle the bill and leave. In contrast to Mayasame Ayaka's wariness, Wang Chong smiled calmly. Flinging his sleeves, he pushed aside the chair by the side and left the tavern. Chapter 236. Deep into the night, the capital fell silent. In the absence of his little sister, Wang Chong sat cross-legged in the study, breathing in and out. Strand after strand of origin energy immediately gathered and flowed into Wang Chong's body. Pung! After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong's body suddenly jolted, as if something had opened up. Wang Chong's aura abruptly changed, as if he had grown stronger. Qi. Intrigued, Wang Chong opened his eyes and raised his finger. Qi. In the next instant, a piercing cold gleam shot out from the tip of his finger. This cold gleam was only half a qi long, but it exuded an incomparably sharp aura. Opening the Guanyuan acupoint can indeed allow one to release sword qi, and sword qi of massacre. Wang Chong thought as he stared at the sword qi at the tip of his finger. Cultivators below Origin Energy Tier 9 were unable to release their inner qi. However, this wasn't absolute. Wang Chong knew of a small trick. By opening a hidden Guanyuan acupoint, he would be able to release his inner qi and origin energy. However, there was a flaw in this method. Only the few meridians near the Guanyuan acupoint could release origin energy. At this moment, Wang Chong could only release sword qi through his index and middle fingers. This referred to sword qi. Sometimes it could display unexpected effects. SSSS. Suddenly, faint footsteps sounded from outside. They were as light as a cat's. And if one didn't pay attention, it would be impossible to tell them apart. Mayasame, come in. Wang Chong retracted his finger, dispelled the sword qi at the tip of his finger, and turned his gaze to the door. Jia. The door was pushed open, and a masked figure dressed in black walked in. It was Mayasame Ayaka. Gongzi, I found their residence. Mayasame Ayaka dived straight into the topic after entering the room. Wang Chong's shoulders trembled slightly, and he abruptly raised his head to look at Mayasame Ayaka. To the southeast of the capital, near the edge of the city walls, a solitary courtyard quietly stood amidst the lush forest. In the capital, foreign merchants would often purchase real estate here. And this sort of isolated single-door courtyard was extremely common in the capital. Is this the place you've been investigating? In the darkness, Wang Chong said while hiding in the crown of a camphor tree. From his corner, he could see a few lights in the courtyard. He could vaguely see the silhouettes of people coming and going, but it seemed that there weren't many of them. However, he could still see that the people in the courtyard were very vigilant. There were many open and hidden sentries. Wang Chong couldn't be more familiar with this. The first thing a scout in the army had to do when investigating a military situation was to eliminate the enemy's open and hidden sentries. And, when we followed those people, this was the first stronghold we found. Mayase Mayaka said. Only her eyes were exposed, and the rest of her face was covered by a veil, making it impossible to see her expression. This place doesn't look like a hideout. Where are the others? Wang Chong turned around and asked with a slight frown. There's no news yet. It's difficult to follow those people. Furthermore, most of them haven't left yet. Mayase Ayaka lowered her voice and said with a troubled expression. Following those Gogurians was far more difficult than she had imagined. Those who dared to disguise themselves as Han were all formidable experts. They were extremely familiar with the Tang dynasty. Furthermore, after so many years, they had already formed a complete system. The Gogurians opened casinos, taverns in the west of the city, and the Gogurian assassins, or rather soldiers, disguised themselves as wealthy merchants, bodyguards, and travelers of the Central Plains to stay in the taverns. When Mayase Ayaka noticed this, she was astonished. The craftiness of the Gogurians was far greater than she had imagined. Everyone only paid attention to the casinos, restaurants, and inns, as well as the Gogurians working in them. How many people would notice the Han customers and travelers staying in the lodgings of the inn? Without a doubt, the Gogurians had made use of this loophole in their thinking. Upon understanding this point, Mayase Ayaka finally understood why the royal court of the Tang dynasty was unable to find anything wrong with them. Turning her gaze to Wang Chong, Mayase Ayaka was even more astonished. It was as if Wang Chong had known this answer from the start. Recalling the matter regarding the specter steps, Mayase Ayaka felt even more uneasy about it. If not for Wang Chong's age, she would have worshipped him as a god. Have you checked the interior? Wang Chong asked. There are roughly 30 people inside. The others are fine, but there's a particularly formidable expert in there. I dare not approach him. Mayase Ayaka said with fear in her eyes. More than 30 people? Wang Chong frowned in contemplation. So, in the next instant, Wang Chong slid down the tree and disappeared without a trace. Gongzi! Before Mayase Ayaka could react, she realized that Wang Chong was nowhere to be seen. Gritting her teeth, Mayase Ayaka slid down the tree and hurriedly chased after him. Wang Chong glanced around the perimeter of the courtyard, then carefully avoided the open and hidden sentries, circling around them. Chi Lu! Wang Chong climbed up the tree like a civet cat, climbed up the wall, and with a flip, he easily entered the courtyard. His movements were so agile that even Mayase Ayaka was astonished. I'm here. Wang Chong landed lightly on the ground. There are 2 at the corridor, 2 in the bushes, 2 on the tree, and 3 in the open. There are a total of 8 patrolling guards. The courtyard was much larger than it appeared from the outside, and there were 8 Gogurian warriors patrolling the area, surveying the surroundings warily. However, due to the size of the courtyard, it wasn't too difficult for Wang Chong to sneak in. Gongzi! A gust of wind blew, and a familiar voice carrying a faint aroma sounded from behind. Mayase Ayaka followed behind and crouched in the bushes beside Wang Chong. Gongzi, it's too dangerous here. I suggest that you leave immediately. Mayase Ayaka said worriedly. She was an assassin, and she possessed the specter steps, so it was easy for her to get around them. However, Wang Chong wasn't one of them. There were many Gogurian experts here, and even she didn't dare to make a move recklessly. Needless to say, Wang Chong, if he were to be discovered and surrounded, he would be doomed. Don't worry, it's very safe here. Wang Chong faintly smiled. It was true that these people were wary, but Mayase Ayaka had underestimated his capabilities. If not for the fact that he had a weakness, Wang Chong wouldn't have dared to barge in alone. So, Wang Chong scanned the surroundings, and before Mayasame Ayaka could react, Wang Chong had already gone around the periphery and sneaked in. Unlike Mayasame Ayaka, Wang Chong's speed wasn't too fast. He made use of the shadows, the bushes, the blind spots of the Gogrian sentries, and the time difference to sneak in. Watching from behind, Mayasame Ayaka couldn't react for a long time. Roughly 7 to 8 breaths later, Wang Chong successfully snuck into the depths of the courtyard and hid behind a fallen fake mountain. The Gogurians clearly didn't understand the art of fake mountains in the Central Plains. As such, the fake mountains in the courtyard were in the way, so they were pushed down directly. This made things easier for Wang Chong. Wang Chong's sharp gaze swept across the courtyard. Even though it looked ordinary, Wang Chong noticed many obscure symbols in the courtyard. On the pillar of the corridor, there was the image of a red flame, and on the paper window, there was the silhouette of a red boy. And on the door of the opposite room, Wang Chong saw the symbol of an arrow cluster and quiver. This is a temporary base of the Gogurians, and its level isn't high. The person stationed here shouldn't be above true martial tier 5. Wang Chong thought. He had come into contact with the Gogurians and captured a few assassins before, so he knew some of their customs. The flame represented the sun, and it was usually imprinted on the corridor. This way, it wouldn't raise any suspicions. On the other hand, the red boy on the paper window represented the three-legged crow. The Gogurians believed that the three-legged crow could be transformed into a red boy, as the three-legged crow was too conspicuous in the Central Plains, and it would be weird if someone noticed it. Thus, it was much better to change it to a red boy. Chapter 237. Gongzi, we can't proceed any further. The Gogrian expert is right ahead. Just as Wang Chong was deep in thought, a soft but powerful hand suddenly reached out from behind and grabbed his arm. Besides, we still don't know if that Gogrian King Sojuram is here. If he's here, we might not even be able to escape if we were to be discovered. Mayasame Ayaka said anxiously. It wasn't a secret that Wang Chong wanted to deal with King Sojuram, but anything that involved the Gogrian spy was incomparably dangerous. Putting aside how elusive that person was, he had a large group of vicious and formidable Gogrian assassins under him. The first name that Mayasame Ayaka heard upon entering the assassin circle was King Sojuram. If not for Wang Chong, she wouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke King Sojuram. Yet, Wang Chong was more daring than the heavens, sneaking here alone. Even she couldn't stop him. Hey, don't worry, your worries are unfounded. King Sojuram isn't here. At the very most, he's just a Turkic condor shooter. Wang Chong turned around and revealed his findings with a suppressed voice. If King Sojuram isn't here, then our operation is meaningless. It's not worth spending so much effort just for a Gogrian expert. Why don't we retreat for now? We'll inform the royal court after we leave, and the royal court will deal with this Gogrian base. Mayasame Ayaka persuaded softly. This was the safest method. Retreat? How can that be? Wang Chong chuckled. The reason why we're investigating the Gogrian base isn't to hand it over to the royal court. If Mayasame Ayaka thought that Wang Chong was doing this to exact vengeance for the Gogurians' night assault, she was being too naive. The reason why Wang Chong was investigating the Gogurians wasn't just to hand them over to the royal court. Wait here for me. Wang Chong's heart thumped. He suddenly moved his hands and feet like a giant black lizard. Shaking his head and wagging his tail, he quickly made his way to the room in front of him. Young master! Shocked, Mayasame Ayaka reached out to grab him, but it was already too late. Mayasame Ayaka trembled in fear, and her face paled. The perception of a true martial realm martial artist was very sharp. Even she did not dare to cross this distance. Wang Chong actually touched it just like that. But what was even more shocking was that Mayasame Ayaka could still sense Wang Chong's presence. But in the blink of an eye, Wang Chong's aura vanished from Mayasame Ayaka's senses like a bubble. Mayasame Ayaka could still vaguely make out Wang Chong's silhouette, but she couldn't sense his aura at all. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Mayasame Ayaka was completely stunned. She wanted to go over, But she didn't dare to take the risk. What Wang Chong could do, she wasn't confident that she could. Oblivious to Mayasame Ayaka's thoughts, Wang Chong's tortoise-breathing art, which he had learned from Ablonidon and Arloja, came in handy at this moment. This tortoise hibernation, a mystical art of the Sindhi monks of the western regions, allowed one to bury oneself deep underground, sealing off all the pores of one's body, preventing the slightest bit of one's aura from leaking out. On top of that, one's metabolism would also be reduced to a snail's pace, allowing one to go without food or water for months or even years. This was something that even Wang Chong was unable to achieve back then. Back then, he was astonished when he heard of it. It could be considered as a legendary art born from the impoverished land of Sindhu. Even though it wasn't too powerful, it was extremely miraculous. Wang Chong's tortoise-breathing art hadn't reached the level where one would be fine without food or water for months or even years. However, sealing off all the pores of one's body to prevent the slightest bit of one's aura from leaking out was still possible. Under such circumstances, coupled with the celestial steps, it was entirely possible for one to fool the other party. The shadows of the lanterns on the window flickered, and the soft chatter of Gogurians could be heard from within. It was the conversation between two famous beauties. Wang Chong had learned Gogurian back then. The reason why he came here was because he heard a familiar phrase. "How's the investigation?" A cold voice in the room asked. It sounded authoritative. "I'm almost done. I've gathered all the information on White Tiger Peak." The other authoritative voice replied. A familiar sensation assaulted him once more, and the frown on Wang Chong's face deepened. This was the second time he had heard of this term. I'll hand it over to Lord once I've gathered all the information. Our loss the previous time was too bizarre. Lord must have his reasons for instructing us to do so. We'll know what's going on once we look into it. The authoritative voice replied. Wang Chong's mind buzzed, and countless thoughts flashed across his mind. He vaguely understood something. Your subordinate understands. The second authoritative voice replied. Also pay attention to one thing. Lord has instructed us to stay low for the next few months. We mustn't cause any trouble. The Tang dynasty is loose on the outside, but tight on the inside. It's not as simple as it looks. The warriors we transferred over from the empire were used by the Tang dynasty to temper them. Not a single one of them escaped. The voice, which sounded like it had a high status, seemed to be a little repressed. It paused for a moment before continuing. However, these warriors died a worthy death. They have served the empire loyally. Also, Lord has instructed us to deal a heavy blow as long as we survive this wave. He has already contacted His Majesty, and a batch of elite warriors will be arriving from the empire soon. When the time comes, we'll make the Tang dynasty suffer. Lord has his eyes on a batch of famous officials of the Tang dynasty. These people have never been friendly to our Goguryeo. When the time comes, we'll make them disappear from the face of the earth. We'll make the Tang dynasty suffer to the bone. Long live Goguryeo. Long live Saint Gaysaman. The authoritative voice seemed to have been injected with adrenaline, and it immediately grew agitated. Outside the window, Wang Chong's heart jolted. In that instant, a frenzied gale blew in his heart, raising huge waves. King Sojuram is moving ahead of schedule. This was the only thought that remained in Wang Chong's mind. King Sojuram's operation in the Central Plains wasn't limited to just this once. The assassinations and sabotage he organized would occur once every 3 to 5 years. King Sojuram had assassinated the important officials of the royal court before. But Wang Chong knew that none of them could compare to the one King Sojuram carried out half a year later. The censors of the royal court, the generals of the Bureau of Military Personnel, Bureau of Punishments, and some old officials of the Tang dynasty were all assassinated. Even the maids and servants in their residences were executed. This incident shocked the entire royal court, and even the Holy Emperor was infuriated. It was because of this incident that King Sojuram was hunted down by the entire royal court. Even the royal guards, chamberlains of Chamberlain, and the nobles of the royal court were involved. However, he was well prepared. After the assassination was over, he successfully backed out of the Tang dynasty, and returned to Goguryeo safely. The entire incident of the Tang dynasty had made him famous. But this matter should have happened half a year later. Why would it be brought forward so suddenly? Wang Chong's heart was pounding furiously. But there was one thing that Wang Chong was certain of. The matter that the Goguryeo leaders were discussing was undoubtedly that matter. The Goguryeo martial arts syndicate already had considerable influence in the capital. For King Sojurem to mobilize a large number of elite soldiers from the capital. This was the only time in history that such a matter had happened within half a year. If not for the fact that he could understand Goguryeo, no one would have known of this matter. All right. You can leave now. The troops that Lord has requested will take another month or so to arrive. Make sure to pay attention to this period of time. The royal court of the Tang dynasty is currently investigating us. Make sure not to let them find anything. Ha ha ha, pardon me for being presumptuous, but Lord, you're overestimating them. It's not that I'm looking down on them. If they really had that kind of ability. Ha ha ha, that's true. In the room, the two Goguryons laughed heartily as they ended their conversation. In the room, the two Goguryons laughed heartily and ended their conversation. Pung. Not too long after Wang Chong hid in the shadows, the door suddenly opened, and a tall and muscular Goguryeo expert, carrying a long black sword bag on his back, walked out. Sweeping his gaze across the surroundings, he leaped onto the roof, and in a few leaps, he disappeared from the courtyard. After the expert left, the room fell silent. Under the light, the man sat motionless in front of the table, seemingly lost in thought. No one knew what he was thinking about. How childish of me to fail to capture you. At the same time, Wang Chong sneered coldly as he slowly retreated along the path he came from. Gongzi, how is it? Upon seeing Wang Chong, Mayasame Ayaka heaved a long sigh of relief. She had been so nervous that she feared that Wang Chong would be discovered. She was prepared to make a move at any moment. But in her heart, Mayasame Ayaka was impressed. Wang Chong seemed to possess an endless amount of martial arts. It was hard to tell whether it was due to the deep heritage of the Tang dynasty, or if Wang Chong was the only one. You can leave now, Wang Chong said. He didn't intend to leave so quickly, but now, he had changed his mind. After leaving the Goguryeo gathering point, Wang Chong didn't return to the Wang family residence. Instead, he headed straight for the King of Song's residence. In the Great Tang Empire, Wang Chong was the only one who could knock on the door of a noble's residence in the middle of the night. Is what you said true? In the main hall, the King of Song wore a dark casual robe with a grim expression. He had been woken up from his sleep by Wang Chong. The only person who could do this without being blamed was Wang Chong. It's true, Wang Chong said as he recounted the events in detail. Of course, there were many things that Wang Chong had added in as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to win the trust of the King of Song. The King of Song didn't say a word, but his expression was exceptionally grim. There were precedents of Goguryons assassinating influential officials of the Tang dynasty. Even though there was no concrete evidence, all of the clues pointed to the Goguryons. Chapter 238. Regardless of which dynasty it was, the murder of an official was a huge matter. If the Goguryons were to really pull it off, it would be a huge blow to the prestige of the Tang dynasty and the royal court. More importantly, without evidence to prove that the Goguryons were the culprits, the royal court wouldn't be able to make a move against them. The Tang dynasty was a law-abiding nation, and everything was done according to the law. It was impossible for them to massacre the Goguryons in the west of the city, just based on groundless evidence. Otherwise, it would cause a chain reaction, and the repercussions would be even greater. Wang Chong, this isn't a small matter. If an official is killed without any evidence, our reputation will be tarnished. We can't allow such a thing to happen. If you have their whereabouts, I can mobilize the city defense army, and even request for the Imperial Forest to help you suppress the Goguryons. However, the prerequisite is that you have to confirm the time and location of their arrival. Otherwise, if we were to make a move recklessly, we might end up in a disadvantageous position. The King of Song said grimly. He immediately understood the severity of the matter, And he also understood why Wang Chong came to look for him. The Goguryans' movements actually included the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments, both of which were under his jurisdiction. If the officials of the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments were to be killed, he would be the first to be apprehended by the Holy Emperor and punished accordingly. He couldn't afford to be careless in the face of such severe consequences. Just leave this matter to me. I have a way to track them down. But before that, I need your highness to help me with something, Wang Chong said, after which he revealed the matter of the Condor shooters in the Gogrian base. The strength of a Condor shooter was no small matter. If one were to barge in without knowing their background, it would be impossible for them to return alive no matter how many people they had. A Condor shooter could threaten dozens, or even hundreds of experts of the same level, provided that the latter didn't have sufficient protective gear. Only a master archer could deal with a master archer. To deal with such a Condor shooter, Wang Chong didn't have enough people around him. Only the King of Song's residence had such experts. I understand. The King of Song pondered for a moment before nodding. Leave this matter to me. Go to the side hall and wait. I will arrange for suitable people to help you. Thank you, Your Highness. After exiting the hall, Wang Chong met the expert arranged by the King of Song in the side hall. A burly man, who was more than 2 meters tall, stood in the hall. He wore a thick armor that looked like an iron bucket. Behind him was a 1.67-meter-long giant metal bow, which was extremely eye-catching. There was still a month before King Sojuram would make his move, so there was more than enough time. On the other hand, with this master archer whom he begged from King Song, Mayasame Ayaka, and the experts of the Zhuang and Qi clans, Wang Chong didn't panic. Instead, he began his cultivation plan. In the silent night, the Goguryans' gathering point was as peaceful as ever. So far, the Goguryans hadn't noticed anything at all. Swoosh! Around 1:45, a figure leaped over the walls of the residence. Beneath his clothes, 3 protruding swords stood out conspicuously. This was the most obvious symbol of a Goguryan warrior. The night wind blew, and the Goguryan warrior seemed extremely wary. As soon as he landed on the ground, he immediately scanned his surroundings, and after confirming that there was nothing amiss, he quickly walked away. After walking for a while, he soon left the vicinity of the gathering point. While he was walking, he suddenly saw a young man hurrying toward him. Taken aback, a hint of doubt flashed across his eyes. He felt that something was amiss, but he didn't think that he had exposed any flaws, so the other party shouldn't be coming for him. Thus, he continued on his way. It seemed like an insignificant encounter, but just as the two of them were about to brush past each other, an abrupt change occurred. Clang! The sound of a sword being unsheathed suddenly echoed in his ears. Indistinctly, killing intent surged, and a chilling aura enveloped the Gogrian expert like a tidal wave. Not good. The Gogrian expert's face warped in horror, and he subconsciously tried to draw his sword. However, his overconfidence and carelessness had harmed him. Chi! A sharp sword chi pierced through his chest, piercing right through his chest, and exiting through his back. The blinding radiance of the sword chi even pierced through a large tree behind him. In just an instant, the Gogrian expert was severely injured. Bastard! Alarmed and furious, the Gogrian expert swiftly whipped out 2 black sabers. And at the same time, origin energy burst forth from his body. A ring of white ripples formed from origin energy rippled outward in all directions, reminiscent of the rumbling of metal. Wherever the white ripples passed, the surrounding air would tremble violently, and a sound reminiscent of a tsunami could be heard. Origin energy tier 9. At this level, one would be able to release one's inner chi externally, and the white ripples would appear with every movement of one's body. At this level, one would be able to execute the void-splitting palm, void-shattering palm, and even more formidable experts would be able to execute the legendary 100 Steps Divine Fist. Clearly, the Gogrian expert was an origin energy tier 9 expert. How dare you assault me? You're courting death. The Gogrian's eyes were sharp. With a single glance, he could tell that the young man who assaulted him didn't possess a high cultivation. The other party had only managed to injure him by catching him off guard. Wang. However, in the next moment, something unexpected happened. Wang. In an instant, the white ripples that the Gogrian expert had released suddenly vanished, as though the source of life had been sucked dry. This abrupt change disrupted the Gogrian expert's rhythm. Not only was his body affected, even his origin energy was thrown out of balance. It was as though a pair of invisible shackles had locked down his origin energy, causing his cultivation to plummet from origin energy tier 9 to origin energy tier 8. Qi. In that instant, a blazing sword Qi harnessed an aura of destruction and slaughter pierced through his left chest. The two-sword Qi had sent him into a state of near death. Puqi. Following which, a bizarrely shaped crimson sword slid through his flesh and pierced into the Gogrian expert's heart. The battle only lasted for a few breaths before it ended. What in the world is going on? Astonished, the Gogrian expert fell to his knees. Even at the moment of his death, he had no idea what had happened to his body. Why did the white ripples that he had released suddenly vanish? Why did he suddenly lose control of a portion of his origin energy, even though he still had it in his body? How comfortable! So this is the little yin-yang art. Standing before the corpse of the Gogrian expert, Wang Chong drove the little yin-yang art in his body, and waves of origin energy flowed into his body through the crimson little yin-yang sword. The exhilaration from the growth of origin energy was indescribable. The 84,000 pores on his body felt as though they had opened up, and the origin energy in his body was growing swiftly as well. This was the first time Wang Chong was using the little yin-yang sword given to him by his master, the evil emperor, to absorb another person's origin energy. The feeling was indescribable. It's no wonder why the great yin-yang heaven creation art is labeled as an evil art. This feeling of easily obtaining origin energy is simply too addictive. And once a person is addicted to it, it's easy for them to harbor thoughts of endless slaughter. Thus, those who cultivate this art will become numb to killing, becoming more and more frenzied. In that instant, Wang Chong's mind was clear, and the origin energy in his body grew rapidly. In just a short period of time, it had already surpassed Wang Chong's several months of hard work, leaving Wang Chong in awe. Chapter 239. At the same time, a voice sounded in Wang Chong's mind. Along with this voice, a raging wind blew, and invisible origin energy seeped into Wang Chong's body through his limbs and bones. In that instant, Wang Chong could clearly sense that his aura had grown slightly stronger, and the bane of the battlefield halo within him had grown significantly stronger as well. Just a single origin energy tier 9 Gogrian warrior had raised Wang Chong's origin energy and halo simultaneously. There was no other way to raise his cultivation faster than this. Using the little yin-yang art to absorb the opponent's origin energy and internal energy, using the sword Qi of massacre to subdue the opponent, and through killing the opponent, he would absorb the opponent's internal energy to strengthen the little yin-yang art. Repeating this cycle, Wang Chong's cultivation plan in his previous life was slowly being carried out by his own hands. To think that I thought that the little yin-yang art could only absorb a small portion of the opponent's origin energy when they were severely injured, and that it was a huge flaw. From the looks of it now, this ability is already formidable. Seeing is believing. No matter how much I hear or understand, I can't compare to trying it out with my own eyes. Executing the little yin-yang art was completely different from what he imagined it to be. It wasn't an easy task to absorb all of an opponent's internal energy. At the very least, one had to reach an extremely high level of mastery in order to do so. In comparison, the little yin-yang art's ability to absorb a portion of the opponent's origin energy when they were severely injured and unable to put up any resistance was already incredible. Gongzi, you're even more like an assassin than us. A familiar voice suddenly sounded from behind. On a nearby tree, Mayasame Ayaka, dressed in a nocturnal outfit, slid down from the lush crown of the tree. Her movements were as light as a leopard as she slowly made her way toward Wang Chong. She had been watching from the top of the tree, prepared to make a move the moment the situation turned for the worse. She didn't expect Wang Chong's attack to be so swift and decisive, dealing with the opponent in just a few moves. She didn't even have a chance to make a move. Hee hee, even if you haven't eaten pork, haven't you seen a pig run? Wang Chong chuckled. Young master. Taken aback, Mayasame Ayaka couldn't help but blush. Wang Chong was clearly referring to her. Ha ha ha. Wang Chong laughed heartily. He used a few lines from his previous life to tease Mayasame Ayaka. Let's go and deal with the corpses. Don't let the Gogurians find out. As Wang Chong spoke, he bent down and searched the body of the Origin Energy Tier 9 Gogurian. Soon Wang Chong discovered something. It was a wooden box about 2 fingers wide, and it exuded a faint fragrance. The Gogurian seemed to have placed great importance on it. Wang Chong opened the wooden box and soon, a golden Gogurian ginseng appeared before his eyes. It's really here. Looking at the ginseng in the wooden box, Wang Chong smiled as if he had expected it. The reason why he ambushed the Gogurian expert wasn't just to cultivate the little Yin-Yang art and bane of the battlefield. His other objective was the Gogurian ginseng. The Gogurian ginseng was renowned throughout the world, and according to the age of the ginseng, it could be categorized into white and gold. Judging from the color, this ginseng was at least 200 to 300 years old. The Zhuang clan and Qi clan had to put in a lot of effort just to take out a 200 to 300 years old ginseng, and yet every single one of these Gogurian warriors had one on them. Even though Gogurian's territory isn't large, it has quite a few experts. These Gogurian ginseng sure have contributed a lot. Looking at the ginseng in his hand, Wang Chong couldn't help but sigh. Just by picking an Origin Energy Tier 9 Gogurian warrior, he was able to find a 200 to 300 years old ginseng on him. From this, it was clear how wealthy Gogurian was. With these deep fire ginseng, the Gogurian Empire could easily mass-produce experts. Just like harvesting chives, he plucked them wave after wave. Placing the ginseng back into the wooden box, Wang Chong stuffed it into his robe, turned around, and left. Not too long after he left, the battlefield was cleaned up. The corpses and bloodstains were all wiped clean. Even the traces of battle were wiped clean. In the following period of time, Wang Chong spent his days ambushing the Gogurians, who were traveling between the stronghold and the other areas of the capital. Wang Chong had long realized that this stronghold was in close contact with the Gogurians in the west of the capital. Every day, there would be a different group of people coming and going. As long as he chose a suitable time to ambush them along the way, he would be able to accomplish it without anyone noticing. Of course, the Gogurians didn't lack experts either, and those true martial realm experts were more than enough to crush Wang Chong easily. Thus, Wang Chong chose his opponents carefully, choosing only Origin Energy Tier 9 experts. As for the others, he didn't touch a single true martial realm expert. At the very least, he wouldn't touch them at his current cultivation realm. 1, 2, 3, Wang Chong ambushed the Gogurian warriors one after another, strengthening his bane of the battlefield halo and the Origin energy in his body. At the same time, the ginseng collected from the Gogurian warriors was also consumed by Wang Chong, nourishing the Origin energy in Wang Chong's body. Wang Chong could feel his strength growing stronger and stronger, and he was getting closer and closer to Origin Energy Tier 8. Days passed, but Wang Chong wasn't in a hurry. He made use of this rare opportunity to strengthen himself. The amount of Origin Energy required to advance from Origin Energy Tier 7 to Origin Energy Tier 8 was far greater than any of the previous tiers. The higher one's realm, the more Origin Energy one would require. In fact, the amount of Origin Energy required could even be multiplied. Ha! Amidst the darkness, a loud bellow sounded. In an instant, 3 black sabers charged out from the forest like a massive spinning top, slicing toward Wang Chong. So, without any hesitation, Wang Chong executed the single consecutive slash and somersaulted in midair, dodging the lightning strike by a hair's breadth. Qi. 2 dazzling sword qi, each as thick as a finger, filled with killing intent and destruction, shot out from between Wang Chong's fingers as he somersaulted. These 2 sword qi were incomparably sharp. The first pierced through the flood of stellar energy, and pierced through the Gogurian warrior's left chest, while the second pierced through his right chest. 2 consecutive surges of sword chi struck down the Gogrian cultivator. What kind of sword chi is this? Amidst the forest, the Gogrian warrior bellowed in disbelief. The flood of stellar energy of an Origin Energy Tier 9 cultivator was powerful enough to shatter boulders and deflect even the attacks of swords and sabers. Yet it was unable to dodge those 2 inconspicuous sword chi. But before he could even react, Puchi, Wang Chong leaped up from the tree branch and flew back. The little Yinyang sword pierced into the Gogrian warrior's body. Congratulations to user for killing 20 Gogrian warriors. A voice filled with anticipation sounded by Wang Chong's ear. Hong Long. The surrounding air vibrated, and an indiscernible surge of origin energy gathered from the surroundings. Wang Chong wasn't unfamiliar with the bane of the battlefield aura, but there was something different this time around. Wang Chong could clearly sense that the rate and duration of the origin energy, surging into his body, had increased significantly, and it was completely different from before. Not only so, along with the influx of origin energy, Wang Chong felt the bane of the battlefield aura in his body jolting, and the aura it emanated also changed slightly. It became denser and heavier. As expected, when the number of enemy soldiers I kill reaches an integer of 10, 20 or 30, the energy I absorb from the surroundings will undergo a qualitative change. Regardless of whether it's the intensity of the origin energy absorbed or the duration of the absorption, it will increase significantly. Surges of origin energy gushed into Wang Chong's body from the Gogrian warrior's body, and while feeling the increase in origin energy, Wang Chong slowly closed his eyes and nodded in realization. Back then, during the night assault, Wang Chong had noticed that there would be a change in the absorption of origin energy when the number of enemies he killed reached an integer. However, he wasn't able to verify it back then. Now that he had verified it, it was indeed the case. Gongzi, the Gogurians are getting more and more wary. Behind him, Mayasame Ayaka walked out from the forest. Glancing at Wang Chong's back, a hint of admiration flashed across her eyes. Wang Chong had already simplified his assassination methods, turning them into a model that would allow him to become more efficient. His battle with the Gogurians had never lasted too long before Wang Chong started. Most of the time, the battle would end in just a few rounds. Of course, this was also due to the fact that such an ambush wasn't suitable for a prolonged battle. Otherwise, if the Gogurians in the base were to be alarmed, Wang Chong's identity would be exposed. Those fellows are indeed getting more and more wary. They must have noticed something. Wang Chong raised his head and remarked. He should have been the one to make the first move, but the Gogrian was the one who made the first move. This was the first time such a situation had occurred. If not for the massive increase in his fighting prowess over the past dozen days, he wouldn't have been able to match up to his initial strength. It would have been impossible for the battle to end so quickly. Gongyu, aren't you curious as to why I never allow you to interfere? Wang Chong suddenly turned around and glanced at Mayasame Ayaka. Gongyu wouldn't dare. Wang Chong replied with a smile that didn't seem like a smile, but Mayasame Ayaka's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly lowered her head. She wasn't a fool. In just half a month, Wang Chong's cultivation was already higher than what others would achieve in a year. The powerful sword chi at his fingertips, and the inexplicable weakening of his opponents, all pointed to the fact that there was something invisible at play in the battle. Gong Yu's cultivation was even higher than Wang Chong's, so she could sense that the aura of this young master of the Tang dynasty would rise significantly every time he killed an opponent. It would be a miracle if she said that there was nothing amiss here. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.